Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, back at you with a new video. Today is Sunday, January 18th, 2026, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can. Cash App $ORIONNWSF or the YouTube Super Chat right here. We got the NFC Divisional Playoffs, the Los Angeles Rams versus the Chicago Bears. Kickoff is going to be here in just a minute or two, so let's cue up the music, take a look at the thumb, and let's get settled in for the NFC Divisional Playoffs. Happy Sunday, everyone. On the left, the MVP of the league this year, Matthew Stafford, and on the right, DJ Moore. Can't wait to see what we get into this particular matchup. We're going to be shooting for 100 likes, 100 on the Dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Sean McVay, one of the brightest minds in football. Ben Johnson showing that he can do it as well. And it's really going to come down to not only the skill position players, but the guys in the trenches. You got Matthew Stafford at quarterback for the Rams, running back Kyron Williams, one of the best wide receivers in the game, Puka Nacua, his teammate, future Hall of Famer Devontae Adams, and one of the best defensive players on planet Earth, Jared Verse. And then as far as Ben Johnson and the young Chicago Bears, you got Caleb Williams, #1 pick from USC, DeAndre Swift at running back, Colt Loveland, one of the up-and-coming premier tight ends, DJ Moore, as you saw on the thumb, rookie Luther Burden III, and on defense, we can't forget about Montez Sweat. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day, and congratulations to the New England Patriots for getting the job done at home and, snowy, unconventional weather. It looks like we're going to have 2 snow games here on Sunday. So we're going to get the Patriots with Drake May and against the Broncos and Jarrett Stidham. So we assume the Patriots will punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. Obviously, in this game, the Rams are favored on the road by 3.5. Every home team has won up to this point. But I assume that we will get a Ram win and we'll get a great NFC Championship game were the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, if Bo Nix was healthy and didn't break his ankle in overtime, then that Bronco-Patriot game would be more must-see TV. But it kind of feels like if the Rams win today, it definitely could end up being a rematch of a previous Super Bowl with the Seahawks and the Patriots, or the Rams and the Patriots. So, again, I would like to be able to give Denver some kind of shot. But again, if you're going to be going with Jarrett Stidham and Sam Ehlinger, that's going to be a tough task against a team that's very well balanced in the New England Patriots. And we saw that today. Obviously, too many turnovers by CJ Stroud. And again, you can't win with, 4 interceptions and having so many turnovers. And it was definitely, a turnover-plagued kind of game. And there's no doubt about that. But again, you got to be able to play your best football late in the year. And then the injuries started to pile up for Houston as well. I felt that, Houston definitely had the best D-line in football. But again, the Patriots might be the most well-rounded team in the AFC. Very similar to the Rams and the Seahawks, but more similar to the Seahawks out of any other team in the NFC. So again, if you end up having a good offense, defense, and special teams, you're going to have a shot. And I think a lot of people forget, New England's, defense was top 10. It may not be as talked about as the Texan defense, the Bronco defense, or the Seahawk defense, but very disciplined under Vrabel. And we've seen the heights that, Drake May has been able to reach with Josh McDaniels. And again, if Bo Nix didn't get hurt, that would be more must-see TV. So you assume that New England will find a way going against a backup quarterback. And I feel for every Bo Nix fan and every Bronco fan out there, congratulations in New England getting the job today. So I assume that they will be able to punch their ticket. And the real question is, if the Rams beat the Bears here today, will it be the Seahawks, the favored team at home, or the underdog Rams? And again, if there's a team in the NFC that can actually hang with Seattle at this point of the year, there may be only one, and it is the Los Angeles Rams. But for them to be able to get to that game in the NFC Championship game in Seattle, they got to take care of business here today on the road against the Chicago Bears. Tyler in the building, what's good? How are you? Daniel in the building, what's good? Let's get it, baby. And then obviously we have the Natty tomorrow, which we'll be doing between the Miami Hurricanes and the Indiana Hoosiers. So obviously we'll see what happens in this hopefully blizzard condition type of game. And then we'll be dropping right into this matchup tomorrow between the Hurricanes and the Indiana Hoosiers for the Natties. So definitely excited about today and tomorrow. Got a chance to wake up early, spend some extra time with Paisley Pup, and again got a chance to watch about 3/4 of the game. Only missed a little bit when I had to take a walk with Paisley in the afternoon, but I got to see a majority of the first half and all of the second half of that New England-Houston game. And just kind of a damn shame, with all the injuries that they ended up having. But again, on top of the injuries, you can't have your quarterback, who normally, when is healthy, plays like a top 10 or top 12 quarterback in CJ Stroud. But again, you got to give the New England defense credit. I don't think people really understand, how good that team really is. And again, that is one of the teams that I feel with the Rams that can challenge Seattle. And right now it feels like, Seattle is the best team in football, but I feel based on what the Rams have roster-wise, as well as New England, there's a chance, that one of those two teams or both could compete. And again, we're going to get a chance to see if the Rams can advance against the Chicago Bears. If they do, then we're going to get Rams and the Seahawks. That's what we want. And we ended up getting two of the preferred three teams in the AFC. I think really the only other option, would have been the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. And unfortunately, they weren't able to get the job done. But again, they did have, kind of a up and down season. And hopefully Josh Allen will get some more weapons on defense. And again, at some point, they kind of have to address that number one receiver spot. They really haven't been the same since Stephon Diggs left. And you've seen with Diggs, anywhere he goes, their teams get, dramatically better. And again, if you're a quarterback and you need to be able to take your skill set to another level, having a Stephon Diggs on your team definitely seems to make a difference for the Minnesota Vikings and the Minneapolis Miracle. It definitely took Josh Allen and the Bills and his career to heights that we've never seen. And then now, obviously, with Drake May and the New England Patriots. So congratulations, New England. I've been watching many, of your games throughout the year. You're very well balanced, like the Seattle Seahawks. And again, it's very possible that we do get a Seahawk-Patriot rematch from a previous Super Bowl, and we all know what happened there. But different coaches this time around, and again, maybe a different result at the end of the day. Love you guys, and I appreciate you guys very much. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. And I'm definitely looking forward to the, coaching strategies out of Sean McVay and Ben Johnson. I assume both will be very aggressive on 3rd and 4th down. Matthew Stafford, what can you say? MVP came into the season with kind of a messed up, jacked up back, but you haven't really seen too many instances of him feeling that pain. Has played magnificently at his age. Kyron Williams, one of the top running backs in the league. Puka Nacua, taking his wide receiving skills to the top of the board with Devontae Adams and JSN. Devontae Adams having a little bit of a rebirth in his career. I know he loves being there in LA. And then obviously with Jared Verse and company, their defense may not be as strong as Seattle's at the end of the year, but they do definitely know how to turn it on at the moments that matter the most. And then Ben Johnson, a young guy that was OC for the Lions and almost got them to the promised land, took the job in Chicago. And we thought it might be, a couple years early, for them to make the playoffs, but they did a very good job getting to an 11-6 record, 6-2 at home. Caleb Williams is still a top 16 quarterback. He's nowhere near being top 10 yet. But with Ben Johnson and with more weapons on offense and helping him on the defensive side of the ball, it is possible, at some point in his career, he'll be a top 10 quarterback. DeAndre Swift can always pound the rock down low. Colston Loveland, one of my favorite up-and-coming tight ends. The guy is a G. DJ Moore may not be the same wide receiver that he was on the Carolina Panthers. Can make a big play here and there at times. And Luther Burden III, the other rookie there at wide receiver with Colston Loveland. This team is very, very young with a few rookies like Burden and Loveland. But again, these guys play like 5-year vets. Can't wait to see what they do here tonight. And then we can't forget about one of the dual threats and a guy that can cover the run and the pass in Montez Sweat. Let's get it, baby. Green Bean in the building. What's good? Captain in the building. What's good? I mean, if you're Seattle, you want the Rams to win. You don't want the Bears to win. You want to be able to prove that you're battle tested. You don't want, to go into the NFC Championship game cocky, play the Bears, end up blowing them out, then play New England in the Super Bowl and then lose. Again, you want to make sure you're playing your best football late, and you can't be afraid of good teams. And again, it would be a better storyline anyways if the Rams win. So that way that you could say, hey, we not only beat the brakes off of the Niners, we also beat the brakes off the Rams, even though that they were one of our biggest, threats and contenders. And again, I don't really see any scenario where the Bears win the game. But if you're a Seahawks fan, you should want the Rams to win. You shouldn't be afraid of having to go against a very tough opponent. And a lot of times, the NFC Championship game or AFC Championship game may end up being better than the Super Bowl. So don't be afraid of going against a top team that could take your spot, because it's going to feel that much sweeter if you end up beating a team like Los Angeles rather than beating a team like the Bears, going into the Super Bowl overconfident and then losing by 3 to New England. You don't want to have that happen. So, and again, we're already going to get one shitty matchup with the Broncos and the Patriots with their backup quarterback. We don't need 2 shitty matchups to end the year in the NFL. We want to make sure we have at least one electric matchup, with the Rams and the Seahawks. And then that way we get the Broncos and the Patriots. So it kind of feels like it's going to be Patriots versus who? Seattle or Los Angeles if they get the job done here. Yeah, but that's, there's no fucking way that the Chicago Bears are winning this game. And you know that in your heart. It doesn't matter, if you want the easy path, there's no way that they're going to end up winning this game. 0% chance. We'll see if it ends up being closer, than Houston and New England, but I don't see it. 55-yard kick, but Ethan Evans, Devin Duvernay with a nice 27-yard return. And a nice tackle there by Wallace. First down and 10 at the Chicago 37. You want to make sure you have memories, right? No one's going to remember Seattle beating the brakes off of the Bears in the NFC Championship game. But if it ends up being a very competitive, electric game against the Rams and you end up beating them, that could give you the momentum in beating New England in the Super Bowl. And again, you want to make sure you're playing confident. You want to make sure you're making memories, but you want to be battle tested at the end. And again, New England playing a Denver team with a backup quarterback, that doesn't really suit them going into the Super Bowl. They'll be able to punch their ticket, but again, maybe not exactly the way you want to get in. And we want to make sure that we have at least one electric game, with these last 3 left. Caleb Williams going short right to DJ Moore. I put him on the thumb again. Thought he would be making some plays here today. And look at this. 34 yards by DJ Moore. First down, Bears. Move the chains. And the one thing that Chicago does have going for it, they are playing at home. But again, I just don't really see, the Bears being able to play 4 quarters better than the Rams. Will they be able to outplay the Rams in a quarter or 2? It's possible. And we know the Rams defense is nowhere near as good as New England's, Denver's, Houston's, or Seattle's. Obviously the Rams defense earlier in the year, looked pretty good, but they have been a little shaky in the last few weeks, but they definitely know how to turn it on. 6-yard run there by DeAndre Swift. Ball comes out late after the play, but we'll see if the knee was down. And again, Young and Verse are very good players, as well as Landum. And Landman with that tackle was Swift, and it looks like the ball ends up coming out, but not after the elbows touch. That's a good call there. Williams under center, going deep to Rome Odunze, the former Husky, incomplete. 3rd down and 4 at the Rams 23. Select in the building, what's good? Captain in the building, what's good? DJ in the building, what's good? And again, based on what we've seen, it's clear that, the Seahawks and the Patriots look like the most well-rounded, best teams at this point of the year. And, realistically, that's probably the Super Bowl that we are going to get. Again, Denver with a backup quarterback, 0% chance. And then again, if you had one of these 2 teams that would actually give Seattle a game, it would be the Rams, not necessarily the Chicago Bears. So, but again, we'll see what ends up happening here. You're going to have to earn this. And again, if it was at home for Los Angeles, you would assume it could be a pretty big blowout. But again, here on the road, that might be the thing that keeps this game a little bit closer since they're having to play in this snowy weather here in Chicago. Swift off that right guard for a 2-yard gain. Fisk and Turner with the tackle. And you're already seeing Ben Johnson with the aggressive start. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, a lot of 3rd and 4th down opportunities by both these coaches. They're going to be very overly aggressive. Shotgun set. Williams going deep. Intended for Loveland. Intercepted by Kobe Durant. Beautiful pick, and there you go. Even though the Rams defense may not be as good as Seattle's, or the Broncos, or the Patriots, or the Texans, right? The Rams can pick it up from time to time, and even though they might have struggled a little bit, they're not struggling here. Big interception, and again, Caleb Williams, he's just not a reliable quarterback, and again, I was very happy that they ended up beating the Green Bay Packers and coming up with that comeback, but to go from a Green Bay Packer team to a team that actually can compete with Seattle and make the Super Bowl, again, the Rams getting the job done. Great job there by Kobe Durant. 0-0 Rams and Bears. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. And we know Caleb at times can make plays, but very inconsistent, his throwing motion and his footwork definitely still need work. Now, he's been better under Ben Johnson than in, previous years. But again, they need to run the ball effectively with DeAndre Swift in that running back room. They have to get the ball to Colston Loveland, Luther Burden III, they're rookies, and DJ Moore from time to time. And then again, you're going to need a guy like Montez Sweat to be just as effective as Jared Verse on that side of the ball, because we already know the NFL MVP Matthew Stafford has a plethora of weapons. Offensive line will do their job. Kyron Williams can catch it out of the backfield and run it through the tackles. And Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams might be the best duo in the NFL at wide receiver at this point of the year. And again, you got to make sure you keep an eye on each of them. You can't really be doubling both with a safety over the top, and one-on-one. That's going to be a nightmare for anyone guarding Puka or Devontae Adams. 0-0 here early, 12:53 left in the first quarter. Rams 0, Bears 0, and we'll see if the Rams can get points on their first drive with Matthew Stafford. Let's get it, baby. Mike in the building. What's good? What's up with all you guys Seahawk fans wanting to avoid the Rams? Are you guys that afraid that you can't beat them at home? You should be actually wanting to play. I know when my team was good back in the day, if I saw the Eagles, going to the NFC Championship game every year and they were beating our ass, that would be the team that I would want to be able to beat to get to the Super Bowl. Because if you end up winning that big game, you might end up just carrying that momentum all the way. Again, if I'm a Seahawk fan, I would want the Rams. I wouldn't want the Bears to fucking win. I want to be able to beat my rival in the division and show who's boss. You guys already did it against the Niners. What's the difference? Is it because you guys have a real threat of losing? Against the Rams, that's like the only team that could possibly beat you guys. Besides New England, you guys should be embracing the Rams winning this game and showing what you can do at home against them, than rather rooting for the Bears just because, they're not in your division and it would be an easier path. You don't want an easy path. You want to have a hard path to get you battle tested for the Super Bowl. Because I guarantee if it ends up being Seattle and New England, it's going to be, not easy. Same thing with the Rams. You want to make sure you earn it, and you want to make sure you go and embrace the tough opponent instead of going with the easy way out. Because again, if you end up going against the Bears and somehow they win this game and Stafford gets hurt and then the Bears squeak by and win by 3, that's not going to get you battle tested for New England in the Super Bowl. And you don't want to have the same thing repeat, when the last time you played New England. You want to actually reverse that and win this time and not lose in the Super Bowl. Shotgun sets, Stafford short middle to Puka Nacua. Nice 15-yard pass. First down, Rams. Move the chains. But what's going to make a better NFC Championship game? Seahawks Rams or Seahawks Bears? I mean, we already have one shitty matchup with the backup quarterback for the Broncos with Jarrett Stidham in New England. That's almost going to be unwatchable. Do we really want to end the season with 2 unwatchable games at the end of the year and then going into a Super Bowl that we hope that will be good? We want to make sure as fans that we get the best possible outcomes. And we already got one ruined, by the Bills not beating the Broncos and then Bo Nix getting injured. I want to be able to see at least one good game in the last 3. I know I'm not the only one. Stafford, short right to Kyron Williams, incomplete. And it's not like you have to root for the Rams to, go all the way if you're a Hawk fan. You just want to be able to go against the best team, and to prove that you belong at this point and can be a champion. And realistically, you might end up having more memories beating the Rams than depending on how that New England game turns out, if that's what ends up happening in the Super Bowl. Second down and 10 at the Rams 30. Jolly with a $5. Appreciate you. Kobe Durant, he is a beast. Stacks, Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. We're at 5:95 to go on the Dono train. I mean, I know it's been a minute since Seattle's been in the NFC Championship game, but you can't be afraid of a good team, especially a team in your division. You should embrace that. Nice 15-yard pass from Stafford to Jordan Whittington. Gardner Johnson and Brisker with the tackle. First down and 10 at the Rams 45. Kyron Williams off that left side for a 6-yard gain. Second down and 4 at the Chicago 49. I mean, I guess you guys are just built differently than me. You know, I like challenges and I like to be able to go against the best. You know, I don't like easy paths in anything in life. You know, give me a hard path, and that way it ends up feeling more at the end when you end up succeeding. And obviously there's always a fear that you could lose, you know, but again, that's what, you know, makes things worthwhile. You know, when there is a fear where you can lose instead of knowing that you're going to win. Second down and 4 at the Chicago 49. Well, you guys obviously fear the Rams more than you do the Bears, though, right? Because you know that's a team that could, if you play bad, could take your spot. But, you know, even if you play bad against the Bears, you could still win that game. Timeout, Rams. I don't know if I believe you guys. I'm built differently. So, second down and 4 with 10:35 left in the first quarter, 0-0 Rams and Bears. So Sean McVay has called up here for Matthew Stafford, 46 touchdowns, 8 picks, fantastic season, almost 5,000 passing yards. Drake May had a fantastic year as well, but, you know, when the yards are doubled up, you know, you can't give the award for MVP to someone that is doubled up in a lot of the categories. Kyron Williams rushing off that right guard for a 1-yard gain. Deshaun Wright, the corner, coming up with the tackle. Third down and 3 at the Chicago 48. Shotgun set. Stafford going short left to Puka Nacua. 5-yard gain. First down, Rams. Move the chains. CJ Gardner Johnson, the first there. First down and 10 at the Chicago 43. Well, you guys are a different breed. You guys aren't like me then. You know, it's not like you have to root for a team to go all the way, but, you know, I think I would have more pleasure on beating my rival, you know, to go to the Super Bowl rather than, you know, playing a team like Chicago, you know, especially if you want to be able to go all the way. You want to be battle tested. Easy paths don't usually turn into championships all the time. Kyron Williams off that right side for a 7-yard gain. Andrew Billings, the D tackle for the Bears, with the stop. Second down and 3 at the Chicago 36. I mean, if the Bears end up winning this game, it's going to be the worst NFC, AFC championship game ever, you know, for a year. I mean, I'm not really sure if we want to end the season in that way. At least the Super Bowl could still end up being good, but the Bears win this game, it's going to be absolutely unwatchable for both games. Nice job there from Stafford to Jordan Whittington. 20-yard pass. First down, Ramley. Move the chains. First down and 10 at the Chicago 16. Shotgun set. Stafford going deep to Colby Parkinson, the tight end, incomplete. Second down and 10 at the Chicago 16. Seven minutes left here in the first quarter. 0-0 Rams and Bears. Tomorrow we'll be doing the Natty. Number 10, Miami, going against number 1, Indiana. Looking forward to that as well. Shotgun set. Stafford going short middle to Kyron Williams. 6-yard game. Jackson with the coverage and the tackle for Chicago. Third down and 4 at the Chicago 10. Stafford and the Rams are knocking on the door. And they're going to get a minimum of 3, but depending on what happens here on third down, they may end up getting 6. Shotgun set. Stafford going short right to Kyron Williams. Nice catch. Edmonds with the tackle. First down, Rams. First and goal at the Chicago 4, and it feels like we're just a play or two away from getting into the end zone and making it 7-0. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Stafford going short right, incomplete. Second and goal at the Chicago 4. With about 6 minutes left here in the first quarter. 0-0 here early in the NFC Divisional Playoffs. The last game this weekend. Congratulations to the New England Patriots for beating a very unreliable CJ Stroud. And again, anytime you throw 4 or 5 picks, in a game, you're not going to win. And again, a lot of injuries for Houston, and just kind of a damn shame that all of those things happened in that game. And again, New England, very well balanced, got the job done at home. And, we'll see what CJ Stroud does next season, and definitely has to play better than that if he's going to be the long-term guy. See if the Bears bring a blitz on second and third down. Audible at the line for Stafford. Puka in motion. Handoff up the middle. Kyron Williams, touchdown, Rams. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Kyron Williams right up the middle. 6-0 Rams. Nice job there with Sean McVay. Great play calling, mixing it up a little bit with the run and the pass. Great blocking up front by the O-line. And nothing that Montez Sweat or that defense could do there. Extra point is up and good. 7-0 Rams. No surprise there. Judah in the building. What's good? Congratulations. You're in the AFC Championship game. Should easily be able to beat Denver with a backup quarterback. And the real question is the New England Patriots going to face the Rams or the Seahawks in the Super Bowl? Crazy how things can change in, a couple years, where we're like, well, we don't really know, if New England has an identity. Is Drake May going to be the quarterback that we saw at North Carolina? Is he ever going to be able to be a top 10 quarterback or not? And, it really does show you have to have the right coaches and the right supporting cast. And if you can have the right coaches and the right supporting cast, you can take a guy that would normally be underwhelming, not necessarily a failure, but underwhelming and not really, proving his skill set to his fullest potential, and then finally getting the right guys in the building and again, they made a lot of good draft picks within the last couple years, brought in the right free agents. And again, it's just kind of a nice, beautiful thing to see. Sometimes you get to see guys like Baker Mayfield and others be, guys that, have to kind of go and bounce around from team to team, like a journeyman, like Baker Mayfield or like a Sam Darnold, and they finally find a good fit. And then others are, going to be just needing, a good mentor. And Josh McDaniels has done a great job, offense, defense, special teams. And, right now, if you're looking at all the teams that are left, the team that matches up, with Seattle the most is going to be, obviously on the AFC side would be New England, just based on their offense, defense, and special teams. And again, everyone talked about, the Broncos D, deservedly so, Texans D line and their defense, deservedly so, the Seahawks defense, deservedly so. But again, people forget, the Patriot defense was top 10 this year. So again, they got a lot of dogs on that side of the ball as well. So again, for them, to be able to earn it against Bo Nix would have been more satisfying, but again, injuries suck, and, we're going to get kind of an underwhelming AFC championship game. But I do think the Super Bowl will end up being better, than potentially one or both of the NFC championship games, depending on who wins here today. Now, if we end up getting the Rams winning against the Seahawks, that could end up being the real Super Bowl. But again, if it ends up being Rams, Patriots, or Seahawks, Patriots, that could end up delivering a, pretty good Super Bowl. Maybe not as exciting if it was Seahawks, Bills, or Rams, Bills, and Josh Allen being there. But again, New England's got a lot of depth. Quarterbacks, multiple running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, good offensive line, good defense, good rookies, good role players. Definitely excited to be able to see how things progress with the remaining teams that are left, with the Broncos and the Pats. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to Seattle from last night, beating the brakes off the Niners. And then we have to wait here for a couple hours, and we'll find out if it will be the Rams or the Bears. It's crazy, earlier in the week, ESPN, had everyone on their panel, pick the Texans. So that should have said something right there. These people are quote unquote experts, and you didn't even get one to pick, the team that was playing at home that had the more well-balanced team, and again, the D-line is amazing for the Texans, but no one really knew how CJ was going to play, on the road. And, again, a little disrespect, for Drake May in New England. And when I saw that every single individual picked Houston, I knew that New England had a very good chance on, not only letting them know that they were wrong, but, people that are quote unquote experts that watch football supposedly every day, don't understand what a well-balanced football team is. Kyle Monangai off that right side, loss of 2. Puna Ford and Johnson first there for the Rams. Second down and 12 at the Chicago 18. Yeah, but even if the weather wasn't bad, I think New England still would have won that game. The defenses were crazy for both teams. A crazy amount of turnovers with fumbles on Drake May and picks, obviously on CJ Stroud. But, you could have lost a few more of those fumbles, and maybe the game could have been a little bit closer. But, with all of the mistakes by CJ Stroud on top of the injuries, that was just a little bit too much to overcome. But you got to give New England credit. They were fantastic. Little screen from Caleb Williams to Luther Burden III, Nice 11-yard gain. Landman and Lake there with the coverage and the tackle for Los Angeles. Third down and 1 at the Chicago 29. And we'll see if Caleb Williams can get the ball to Colston Loveland and Luther Burden III, their rookies. That's kind of their main guys. Swift and DJ Moore, maybe old school vets. But as we know, if you give Caleb enough time, he can still break down a defense time to time. Still not a top 10 quarterback, but under Ben Johnson's tutelage and mentorship, it's possible that Caleb one day might be a top 10 quarterback. But right now I kind of view him, more 14, 15, 16, out of the, 32 quarterbacks. At times he can play like a top 10, but definitely doesn't have the consistency game in and game out. 2-yard run there by Kyle Monangai. First down, Bears. Bear down. Davis and Spates there with the tackle. Caleb Williams going short left to Colston Loveland. Incomplete. Second down and 10 at the Chicago 31. And I'm very curious on how aggressive Ben Johnson and Sean McVay are going to be in this game. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Well, of course, when you're a number one pick, but again, with bad coaching, he could end up, having the B word, listed next to him, especially if Ben Johnson didn't show up, and no one wants to be labeled a bust at number one or number two at the top of the draft at a quarterback. So shotgun set, Caleb, short right to Zacchaeus, 9-yard pass, 3rd down and 1 at the Chicago 40. Nice grab there by Zacchaeus, bobbling it, but still being able to keep focus on it. Nice catch there. 3rd down and 1 at the Chicago 40. And again, they're going to have a balanced offense. More times than not, they're going to be down. They obviously know that. That means more 3rd and 4th down, aggressive play calls by Ben Johnson. But again, you can't fade the run. When you get down, you have to make sure that you're still getting plenty of opportunities for that running back room. Because if it ends up being Caleb Williams throwing the ball, 3 straight downs, that's going to play right into the Rams' hands. Even though it's been a little shaky, towards the end of the year, but we've already seen, Kobe with a pick already. And again, it was nowhere near any receiver at that moment for Chicago. DeAndre Swift off that right end, nice 13-yard gain. 1st down, Bears, move the chains. Byron Young, another beast linebacker there for the Rams. They're first with the tackle. About 3 minutes left here in the first quarter. 7-0 Rams. Looks like the Rams jumped off sides there. I don't see a flag, though. There it is. Caleb, free play, going deep. There we go. There we go. Nice job there by Colston Loveland, one of my favorite players on that entire offense. And again, when they decided to pick Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, and they were in that war room, and they decided to go Loveland over Warren, the more decorated, tight end, arguably the best from Penn State, it definitely raised a lot of eyebrows. But it's not only about catching the ball, it's about being a good blocker. And they felt that Loveland could do a little bit more all around in his game. And you're starting to see that even though Warren got a lot of kudos, with Daniel Jones and the Colts and played very well in his rookie year, Colston Loveland is right there with him. And again, he doesn't have maybe as good of a quarterback. We know when Daniel Jones was healthy, was playing better than Caleb Williams, but it's nice to be able to see the next kind of, ring of tight ends come in and to be able to show that they can get the job done. What a run by Kyle Monangai, bouncing off defenders like a pinball. Kyle Monangai, 15-yard run. Darius Williams, the corner up there with the tackle after a few Rams getting run over. 1st and goal at the Rams 9. 1st down, Bears. Bear down. And again, a lot of young guys on the team. Kyle Monangai, right? Luther Burden III, Colston Loveland. So again, it's not just a bunch of old school vets, very, very young. But again, a lot of talent, even though those guys are young, with Caleb Williams being a little young himself. 1st and goal. Monangai going off that right guard, 2-yard gain. Johnson and Davis there first for the Rams. 2nd and goal at the Rams 7. They're going to get a minimum of 3, but depending on the play calling here, are they going to go for it on 4th down and not take the 3 if it's available? You have to assume at, some point in this game, maybe even multiple times in the game, that might be what they do. Monangai off that right guard for a 4-yard gain. Kobe Turner coming up there with the tackle. 3rd and goal at the Rams 3. Yeah, definitely a steal in the 7th round. Agreed. And it's kind of a nice thunder and lightning between Swift and Monangai. And then you got, Luther Burden III as your rookie wide receiver, rookie tight end, and Colston Loveland. It's a nice kind of young core. They still need more, on the offensive line. And obviously we know the defense for the Bears traditionally is usually pretty good. Sometimes there's one unit that does a little bit better than the others. Sometimes it's going to be the secondary. Sometimes it's going to be the run defense. At times it will be both, but usually they kind of play in spurts. 3rd and goal. And that's going to be timeout Chicago. And that's a good time to be able to figure out where you want to go with this football. And I don't really necessarily think going with a back shoulder fade in the snow would be, an ideal play to Luther Burden III or DJ Moore. But, going for like a crossing route, something that would be a little bit more eye level and easier for Caleb to make, going to, maybe like Loveland or, one of the guys at tight end, Cole Kmet. We don't even really talk about him anymore, but they have options. But it'll be interesting to see what they do here. Even going to like Swift or Manangai in the flat could end up resulting in a touchdown. But hopefully I don't see a back shoulder fade here. Because again, even great quarterbacks have a hard time with that throw, especially in tough weather like this. Let him know, TJ. Man in motion. Manangai off that right side. Not sure if I like that play call. No gain. Lake and Young. And again, maybe underestimating your offensive line against the D-line of the Rams. That's going to be the end of the first quarter, 4th and goal at the Rams 3. Now, what should the Bears do? Kick the field goal. You don't really know how many times you're going to be able to get it this deep on the Rams, but you also have to realize field goals aren't going to get you a win against the Rams. But at times, you may have to take at least 1 or 2 instead of getting nothing. And again, is it possible they go for this 4th down and get the touchdown? Yeah, of course, it is possible. But again, you have to be able to, kind of pull it back, at times and understand when the time is right to go for the 3 and when it's, time to be able to push. And, at this particular point in the game, I could see, Ben Johnson definitely going for it on 4th down multiple times in this game. But, again, is it the right time to go for it now? I don't know, but we'll find out here in a moment once they go for it and if they end up getting in the end zone or not. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. Yeah, I don't really know, what you're going to get. I've definitely seen previews of the prequel. I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. Pretty much anything that's big on, TV or streaming or movies or, shows and whatnot, I'm going to, check it out and whatnot. So obviously it's, nothing is going to ever compare to the original, but, hopefully it ends up being, worth watching. And, I assume I'll tap in and end up watching it, as long as, the writing is good and the acting is good. It won't be as good as the original, but hopefully it'll be, decent, like at least a good watch instead of something being unwatchable. So 4th and goal here at the Rams 3. And based on how Ben Johnson has coached this team within the last 2 months, I assume that they're going to go for it here. Three wide receiver set. Swift in the backfield. Shotgun set. He's open. Missed him. And he got him. Touchdown, DJ Moore. Let's go. Big play by the Bears. And initially had a player in the flat. Decided to keep his eyes downfield. And again, Caleb Williams looking like that USC Trojan making plays in college. And a nice job by DJ Moore. Had a feeling he would make some plays last week. Had a feeling that he might be able to make some plays this week, put him on the thumb again, and there he is for the first touchdown for the Bears. And again, you got to give Caleb credit. You know, he may not be a top 10 quarterback, but I'll tell you what, that was definitely a top 10 throw that he threaded the needle in that defense with two defenders very close by. One of the best throws that Caleb has made in the last month. Cairo Santos, extra point is up and right down the middle and good. And again, we know Ben Johnson's going to be overly aggressive, and that time it doesn't bite them. And again, they know they're not going to be able to keep up or win with only field goals. But again, you know, if they continue to be aggressive this whole game, you know, you assume at some point it's going to backfire once or twice, and we'll see if the Rams can take advantage at that point. Good game here so far. 14:55 left in the second quarter. 7-7 Rams and Bears. And again, I'm happy that the Bears are keeping up at this point. You know, I don't want to see, you know, any kind of blowout. Again, we knew that the Seahawks, you know, was kind of foreshadowing with Rashid Shaheed, you know, getting that opening kick and running it back, just like, you know, Indiana getting the pick six on Dante Moore versus Oregon. When you have a big play to start off a game, you know, typically that's going to be foreshadowing on, you know, what's going to happen the rest of the way. And nice to be able to see Chicago match the Rams. And again, you know, at home, snowy weather, fans are there. They know how tough it's going to be. And again, for Chicago to win this game, you know, you're going to probably need a pick six, a fumble for a touchdown, a special teams touchdown. You're going to need something extra, you know, on top of, you know, playing pretty consistent, you know, with offensive with Caleb, the running game, and the passing game. Santos kicks. 65 yards, goes to the back of the end zone, and that's going to be a touchback for Matthew Stafford and the Rams. First down and 10 at the Los Angeles 35. Puka, what a hell of a year. Devontae as well. Nice rebirth in his career. Brady, Welker, Moss, Stafford, Nakua, and Adams. It's a beautiful thing. Man in motion. Handoff, little play action. Avoids a sack lunch. Stafford keeps his head downfield, throws into double coverage, and almost intercepted by the Bears. Good defense there by the Chicago secondary. Going deep right to Terrence Ferguson. And Byard with the coverage. And Byard has been good for many, many, many years. And again, the secondary is one of the strong suits, you know, for the Bears as of late. And again, you know, reading the eyes of Matthew Stafford, cluing, they definitely can do it just as good as anybody. Shotgun set, Stafford short right to Kanata Mumfield, 6-yard gain. Brisker with the tackle and the coverage. Third down and 4 at the Rams 41. $14 minutes left here in the second quarter. 7-7 Rams and Bears. Shotgun set. Stafford going short left to Terrence Ferguson. Incomplete. Fourth down and 4 at the Rams 41. I think for me, though, it's like I just want to be able to see, you know, if the Super Bowl ends up being Seahawks, Patriots, or Rams, Patriots, that'll be good, right? But again, the whole disappointment with Bo Nix, you know, and the Broncos and Patriots, it's like I was really looking forward to being able to watch that game, and then now it feels like that's kind of unwatchable. And, you know, if the Bears end up winning this game, I don't want to have two unwatchable games, you know, in the AFC, NFC championship game. You know, again, you're going to get the best teams that end up making it to the Super Bowl. I want to have a little bit of an excitement. You know, I mean, we got the Natty tomorrow. You know, it's not like we have very many games left. So I just want to have some good competition and good football. And as we've seen, this season, during primetime games, at the beginning of the year, it was great. In October and November, it was terrible. It got a little bit better in December. And I just want to be able to finish January on a strong note. And again, injuries suck. And again, you can't really predict everything. And again, the teams that end up getting to the Super Bowl are going to deserve it. There's no doubt about that. But, I just want to be able to see something special towards the end of the year. And I would love to be able to see 2 out of the last 3 games be good instead of maybe 1 game out of 3 being good. And, not to say that, the Bears wouldn't show up against Seattle and the Broncos wouldn't show up against New England. But let's be real. If that ends up happening and the Bears win to here and the Broncos go with, their backup quarterback, Jarrett Stidham, it definitely is going to leave the NFL with a little deflating look. And then obviously they're going to be really pushing, the Super Bowl more than ever if that's the AFC and NFC matchup that we get. So, if you're a Seahawks fan, you don't need to necessarily root for the Rams, but I just want to be able to have a good matchup for the NFC Championship game. And honestly, that Rams-Seahawks game could potentially even be better than the Super Bowl. And those are the type of memories that I carry with me, not only for this season, but moving forward. And I want to be able to have some good memories as we transition into baseball. And we're going to be, doing Mariners every day, and then it's going to be about 6 or 7 months, waiting for the NFL to come back. And obviously I'll be preoccupied with, Mariner baseball every day, but I want to make sure that we're finishing kind of on a strong note. And hopefully tomorrow Miami will be able to keep up with Indiana, but there's no guarantee that, Indiana and Fernando Mendoza don't go for 5 touchdowns, no picks, and beat the brakes off the Hurricanes like they did with the Oregon Ducks. So, it's one thing, when you end up watching big games, and they end up being blowouts. But for me, for every blowout, if it's your team and you win and it's a blowout, I get it. It's awesome, right? But if it's not your team and you're just watching teams play, it's a little underwhelming, when you see a team, like let's say, for example, if Indiana ends up beating Miami and it ends up being 55-7, that's not going to be the way that we want to remember, necessarily college football. Yeah, it would be great for Mendoza and Indiana and Cignetti and everything. But, I'm just hoping, that Carson Beck and, Malachi Toney and Bain on that defensive side, I don't expect them to win tomorrow, but I'm hoping that they play better than Oregon and actually make it fun to watch. But we'll have to wait and see. We know Indiana is on a whole nother level. Rams 7, Chicago 7. And Ethan Evans with a 49-yard punt. And then a 10-yard return by a very good returner, Devin Duvernay. First down and 10 at the Chicago 20. But based on how well balanced the Patriots are, if it ends up being Patriots, Seahawks, Patriots, Rams, I do believe that would be a good Super Bowl. I think that there would be enough defense, but enough offense to make it fun, so, we're getting closer to seeing what, we're going to get, which is really a damn shame with the Bo Nix ankle injury, and New England might have been able to beat them even if Bo played, but we'll never know. Caleb Williams, short right to DJ Moore, no gain. Kobe Durant there with the coverage and the tackle, and hopefully Bo will get healthy, and hopefully they'll have another chance to play a team like Buffalo or New England, and be able to have a chance to go to a Super Bowl themselves. Shotgun set, Caleb Williams, incomplete, short middle to Colston Loveland, incomplete. Third down and 10 at the Chicago 20, and I'm really loving the fact that we got 2 snow games here today. Obviously with the New England Patriots hosting the Texans, all of those crazy fumbles and interceptions. And then now you're getting, the snow coming down at a very, pretty ferocious pace. And hopefully we end up getting it for all 4 quarters. I love seeing, the snow, on TV, obviously playing, when you were a kid in the backyard or at the park with your friends, obviously playing in that crazy weather is always exciting. But I love me some snow games. We don't get too many throughout the year. Third down and 10, Caleb, short left to Colston Loveland, one of his favorite targets at tight end. 5-yard gain, Curl and Fisk with the coverage and the tackle for the Rams. Fourth down and 5 at the Chicago 25. And I'm happy that, this game is in Chicago. The fans are there to root them on. They know they're underdogs, but they're playing, as if they're not afraid, of the Rams, and they know how tough this game is going to be. But just knowing that you got an aggressive play caller like Ben Johnson, and we know the defense for the most part is pretty good for Chicago. So it's not necessarily, you're going to get blown out. And on top of that, you got the snowy weather. So there's going to be some slippage, there's going to be some turnovers. And, whenever we see that big pick or that big fumble, it might be a little bit more magnified, especially with the weather coming down the way that it is. Torrey Taylor there with the punt, and that goes out of bounds. First down and 10 at the Ram 24. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. TJ in the building. What's good? $2 holla. Every dollar counts. Stacks. Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. $2 holla. Appreciate you. Every dollar counts. I'm definitely looking forward to this one tomorrow. Glad I took the time to make all those thumbnails in advance. Number 10, Miami Hurricanes with Malachi Toney. And number 1, Indiana Hoosiers. And it's just crazy, how quickly, football is coming to an end, and baseball season takes a long time. You have to invest a lot of your time and energy if you're a true hardcore baseball fan, which a lot of us are. And again, I love the NFL. I love college football, but I would be lying through my teeth if I wasn't, being true to myself and how excited I am, not for just the Mariners, but just for the MLB to get going. I'm really looking forward to the World Baseball Classic, not just because Cal Raleigh is playing, but that's obviously a part of it, and obviously, the farm system, single A, high A, double A, triple A, seeing who we sign, seeing, what guys are going to get a chance to get the job done. And, very excited to be able to see, our dynamic duo with Julio and Cal take us to another level. And very exciting year last year, but it's only the beginning. Kyron Williams off that left tackle, no gain. Jaquan Brisker, the safety, coming up there with the blitz and the tackle. Second down and 10 at the Rams 24. Captain with a fiver. Stacks. Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Yeah, I mean, we know more than likely Indiana's winning the game, but I hope that it ends up being, by like 10-14. But realistically, it could end up being, 20-30, a point win, but you never know. Stafford sacked. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. And guess who? Montez Sweat. But it was recovered by Kyron Williams. But there's a reason why I had a photo on hand of him already, because if anyone was going to make a play for the Bears on defense, it was going to be Montez Sweat. Same thing goes on the flip side, Jared Verse. Yeah, I mean, to be the sound of the Seattle Mariners on YouTube is a big honor. And again, it's going to be a long grind. But again, I don't plan on missing, a game a month for WWE anymore. So at this point, nice throw, nice catch by Terrence Ferguson, 19-yard pass, first down, Rams. Beautiful throw by Stafford, beautiful catch from Terrence Ferguson. But again, I'm only going to probably miss one game. As long as my mental health is good, I'm going to be going to maybe just one game this year. And then I plan on doing the other 161 on top of the playoff games once we win the division or get the wild card this year. So definitely very, very excited to be getting on that regular schedule of doing Mariners every day. And I know a lot of Mariner fans in the room are excited on that same level as myself. Stafford? It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Jaquan Brisker. Another blitz from the safety position and a big sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. And again, that's what they're going to need to do. Timely blitzes, to be able to make Matthew Stafford's life a little bit of a living hell here on the road in Chicago. And again, they have multiple guys that can come off the edge on the blitz, and it doesn't always have to be a D end or a D tackle, like a Montez Sweat. It can be a guy like a safety or a corner that can come up, and a great job there by Jaquan Brisker. Back-to-back big plays. Hand off to Kyron Williams, gaining about 6 yards. And then Jaquan Brisker in there for the tackle again. 3rd down and 11. 3 straight plays made by Jaquan Brisker. Love seeing a guy be able to show that he can go sideline to sideline and, kind of give that energy to the rest of the guys on the defense. 3rd down and 11 at the Rams 41. Yeah, and like I said, I'm willing to meet up, with anybody, if we end up catching each other at a game and whatnot. I have a great time. I don't get to go to too many places, but, 2 places I love visiting: Autzen, for obviously Ducks games, and Eugene, during football season. But even more, I enjoy going to Seattle to watch the Mariners. It's just a very, very special place. And Stafford going deep to Puka Nacua, and guess who breaks it up? Brisker again, 4 straight plays, and Ethan Evans with the punt. 41 yards and a fair catch there by Devin Duvernay. How often can you see a guy that ends up making 4 straight plays on defense and he's not a D end or a linebacker? That's really saying something about Jaquan Brisker. It's very rare to see a guy make 4 straight plays in a row from the safety position. I mean, unless we're talking like Ed Reed or, Troy Polamalu back in the day. Beautiful by Brisker there, keeping them in this game. 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 18. .54 left in the second quarter in a competitive matchup. Thank God. 7-7 Rams and Bears. Both teams cannot abandon the run. You got to make sure you're keeping the other defense honest. Big plays will happen for the wide receivers, Puka and Devontae Adams at some point in this game. And we know Jared Verse will impose as well. But so far, so good. You're not down by multiple touchdowns. You got an aggressive head coach that, went for a gamble. It paid off with that Caleb Williams to DJ Moore touchdown. And instead of being down 7-3, you feel a hell of a lot better being at 7-7. But again, when you're a risk taker, there's always a chance for it to backfire. But so far, so good for Ben Johnson, Colston Loveland, Luther Burden III, and even the defensive stud Montez Sweat. 7-7 Rams and Bears. And if you're just tuning in to the matchup, Kyron Williams, 4-yard rushing touchdown to get the game started. 7-0 Ramley. And then a beautiful play by Caleb Williams to DJ Moore. 3-yard touchdown pass. And we're knotted up at 7. I would love that. Why not both? Right? Why not, start off, with a team like the Yankees and then, or the Astros, and then eventually end up playing the Blue Jays for, like what happened last season. Instead of the ALCS going 7 games and we lose, how about we win this time? And then we go against the stacked team of the Dodgers that just added Edwin Diaz at closer and then Kyle Tucker. It's almost unfair, on how good, the Dodgers are with the talent that they're bringing in, and it would be nice if, other organizations would spend, more money. But again, there are, certain organizations that try to be like the Dodgers, like the Mets. They spend money,
but they don't really get the right players and the right fit, and it ends up being kind of money wasted. At least when the Dodgers are spending money, it ends up turning into championships, but how could it not? Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, Kyle Tucker, give me a break. On top of Yoshinobu Yamamoto and everyone else that they have. I mean, again, it's going to make it that much more special. Like I was kind of talking about with the Seahawks and the Rams rivalry, if we end up playing the Dodgers and beating them compared to beating someone else, that would definitely mean a lot, not only for the Toronto Blue Jays, but for the Seattle Mariners, if one of our teams or both of our teams eventually do it. It may take a few times, to be able to finally get it done, but I know the feeling would be, words couldn't describe what it would feel like to be able to beat, a team like that, and being able to be a champ. But, you have to assume the only team that's going to beat the Dodgers is the Dodgers themselves with injuries late. And, they're already back-to-back champs, and they're looking for a three-peat. Shotgun set, Caleb Williams, short middle to Durham Smythe, 5-yard gain, 3rd down and 2 at the Chicago 26. Yeah, I mean, for me, I wanted to go on the 4th of July. They had a bucket hat special, but all the tickets were super expensive, $200 and up, because it's the Blue Jays and you got a lot of Toronto fans and a lot of the hype of, us being new rivals with them. So we're not going to go to that game because, if we're going to be sitting 15 to 20 rows back on the lower level, we want to be paying like 100 to 120, somewhere in that range. So we actually have a chance to get a ball. And I kind of know where to sit to get them. Shotgun set, Caleb going short right to Colston Loveland. Nice 10-yard pass. 1st down, Bears. Bear down. And I love the emergence of the new tight ends, being able to show they can get the job done. Trey McBride was absolutely phenomenal for the Cardinals. They just don't have a reliable quarterback to get him the ball game in and game out. And I really love Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, the rookie tight ends this year. And there's quite a few other guys that will be coming into the league, like Kenyon Sadiq, depending on if he gets drafted by the Chiefs as the Travis Kelce replacement or someone else that's looking for a young tight end. But there'll be a few special tight ends coming into the draft this upcoming year as well. Shotgun set, going short left to Luther Burden III, who is a very slippery wide receiver. Curl there at first with the tackle for the Rams. 2nd down and 3 at the Chicago 43. I mean, you always assume, Dodgers will be great, Phillies will be competitive, Cubs will be pretty good. There's going to be certain teams that, for the most part, that they're going to be good. We just really don't know if, the Braves will ever be the team that they were from a few years ago. And obviously the Padres are kind of always in the mix, but they have a hard time beating the top dogs, usually late in the year. Nice little screen pass there to Kyle Monangai. I love his shiftiness and his speed and power. Nice 16-yard pass from Caleb to Kyle. 1st down, Bears. Bear down. Spites and Williams with the coverage and the tackle. But if you overcommit, with your DNs, that's going to leave the flat open. And a great job there as they go for the blitz and try to get Caleb. Again, if he would have been able to get a block downfield, I'm not really sure if that was Roma Dunzier or DJ Moore. It looks like DJ Moore, one of those individuals, missed a block, and if he would have been able to get that 15-yard gain might have turned into 30. Caleb Williams, short right to Roma Dunzier, incomplete. 2nd down and 10 at the Rams 41. But I like every single player that they have that's kind of young and up and coming. Kyle Monangai is great to kind of, take the pressure off of the OG vet, DeAndre Swift. Luther Burden III has got great hands, good route runner, very slippery. And then you got one of the up-and-coming tight ends in Colston Loveland. Not really a huge fan of Caleb Williams, but I do respect, the fact that he's getting better, he's coachable, and the mechanics are getting better with Ben Johnson mentoring him. And again, we want to be able to see quarterbacks in this league succeed, not, fail due to their coaches or organizations not giving them enough. And a nice run there by DeAndre Swift up the middle. Nice 9-yard run. And is that going to be 3rd down and 1, or is it going to be a 1st down? Pretty close to the 1st down marker. But we assume the Mariners and the Astros, are going to be competitive, right? We'll see what the Rangers, Angels, and the Athletics do. Yankees, typically competitive. Blue Jays and Mariners, you assume would be probably the top favorites, in the American League coming into the year. But, again, it's just nice to be able to be recognized as, hey, the Seattle Mariners, we're actually a pretty good team. We got, the best catcher in baseball. We got Julio Rodriguez as well. If we can just get him to start fast. And, even with Julio struggling in the first half of his season every year up to this point, I still want any other center fielder in baseball than him. Again, I think it's a good dynamic with him and Cal. And, the ceiling is definitely very high for us. Hand off to DeAndre Swift and stuffed at the line by Spates and Kobe Durant. No gain. 4th down and 1 at the Rams 32. And they're going to go for it. You can run a QB sneak here. Hell, you can just give it to Kyle Monangai. He might be even more reliable in short distances than DeAndre Swift, but you got plenty of options. You can end up running a tush push with Caleb Williams. You got 2 capable running backs that can get you a yard, but we will see what they decide to do here. And hand off to Monangai. No gain. Wow. Turnover on downs. And again, being overly aggressive is going to end up, coming back to bite them at some point. They went for it on 4th down, ended up getting the touchdown. They go for it on 4th down and 1. Can't even get 1 yard. 0 for Kyle Monangai, which is crazy. Offensive line, what are you doing? Block for your man. And now the Rams will take over on downs. And again, 1 positive 4th down, 1 negative 4th down. But now we got to see if the Rams can actually get points, off of that, aggressive play calling by Ben Johnson. And if they don't get points, then it really doesn't matter. Really when it ends up hurting you, when you go for it on 4th down, is when the team drives down the field and gets a field goal. And then obviously if you get that uppercut, that ends up being the touchdown. And obviously the Bears defense is going to try to prevent that. And the Rams are going to do everything in their power to get it to 10-7 or 14-7 at halftime. And again, they love to run the ball, right? And they love to be able to, use those running backs, but again, Caleb Williams with the tush push, with his size, being able to lean forward, you can go that route, but sometimes you have to try out, Swift and Monangai and see if they can get the 1st down. And we already know the D-line for the Rams is pretty good. They're pretty stout, even though Aaron Donald is no longer playing. So maybe in the future, in the second half, if you have to go for it for 4th and 1, you don't go to Monangai again. You switch and you do, a tush push with Caleb Williams and see how that goes. And then if that doesn't work, then don't do that again. Sometimes you got to kind of check your boxes. And again, when you got 2 capable running backs and a quarterback that can get a yard, sometimes, you're not going to just be like, oh, let's just throw a screen pass to Luther Burden III or, a slant to Colston Loveland. Obviously hindsight is 50-50, but it really just depends if the offensive line does their job. Offensive line does their job, it was a 1st down. Offensive line didn't do their job, gain nothing. So, it has to be a team effort, not just what Swift, Caleb, and Monangai do. The offensive line has to do their job, and obviously at times they're a little overmatched against that Ram D line, but they're still capable enough to get a yard, you would think, but unfortunately they weren't able to get it there. But I do like Monangai a lot. And again, being able to get a late, draft pick that fits their system beautifully. And he's so good that if Swift were to get injured or leave the team, you could feel pretty comfortable with Monangai being the starter, and then getting another guy to fill in, the Swift role if that ends up being the case, down the road. So definitely like a lot of the young pieces, but play calling could have been a little bit better. But again, sometimes you got to check your boxes. Do this first, doesn't work. Maybe QB sneak or tush push, that doesn't work. And then maybe they'll start throwing the ball, on 4th down and 1. But, when you got 3 capable options at quarterback and 2 running backs and you can't get a yard, it's a little tough to be like, okay, we're just going to throw the ball, especially when it's only 1 yard. But again, you got to kind of check the boxes off and see what's going to work and see what's not going to work here early. Throw to Puka Nacua, over his head, incomplete. 2nd down and 10 at the Rams 32. But also, there's been a lot of times where the Bears have ran that same play on 4th down and it's worked. And, Monangai's gotten, 2 to 15 yards. Same thing with Swift. And again, you don't really see Caleb Williams too often with the QB sneak or a tush push. That's not really something they do that often compared to some of the other quarterbacks, but he's tall enough and capable enough to get it done. But again, we'll see if that ends up being something that they consider in the second half. Second down and 10. Stafford going short right to Colby Parkinson. Maybe the team that's got the deepest tight end room in the game, incomplete. But we got a flag coming out, and that's going to be, that's going to be on Chicago, I believe. Is that going to be illegal use of hands? About 4 minutes left here before halftime in a competitive matchup, 7-7 Rams and Bears. And again, since the game is on the road in bad weather, nice to be able to see, the Bears stepping up and feeding off the crowd. And the 5-yard penalty there ends up being now a Blake Corum run off that left end for a yard. Booker and Jackson first with the tackle. Second down and 9 at the Rams 38. I don't know if I would say a lot of missed opportunities. It's not like you're down 21-0. The game is 7-7. They went for it on fourth down, got a touchdown, went for it on 4th and 1. It didn't convert. And, we've seen Ben Johnson go for it on fourth down and go 0 for 3 before in the first half, and then being able to, find a way to win the game and score 25 in the fourth quarter against the Packers. So, I don't think it's a full failure. Again, when you're going to be aggressive, it's not going to work every time. You're never going to see a coach go, 4th down and 1 and convert 6 for 6 in a game. It just doesn't happen. Eventually the other team is going to get you either with a sack or an incomplete pass or a fumble. Stafford going deep left to Devontae Adams and complete. Third down and 9 at the Rams 38. But going 0 for 3 in the first half, against Green Bay, you're, 1 for 2, 50%, could be better, but it is what it is. At least the Bear defense is showing up. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. And you got Kyler Gordon coming off the edge as a corner blitz. We've already seen Brisker come off the edge with the blitz. And again, I love the scheme for the Bears. Not something that Stafford was expecting. He's expecting guys, like Montez Sweat to be coming off the edge, not the corners and safeties off blitzes. I love the scheme for the Bear defense here in the first half. Not what they were expecting. Great job there by Kyler Gordon. And again, you got Brisker, you got Gordon, you got, Byard, back there that can get picks as well. So again, the strong suit for the Bears, besides Montez Sweat, is going to be that secondary. And they're showing that not only they can cover, they can come in there like Rondé Barber and they can get sacks as well. And I love seeing corners and safeties come up, even when they're undersized and get big sacks on the quarterback. And a short return after that punt. And Ethan Evans, 45-yard punt. Devin Duvernay with an 8-yard return. First down and 10 at the Chicago 38. And let's see if the Bears and Caleb Williams can manufacture a field goal or a touchdown in the last 2:54. Yes, he was. Pacific Northwest, baby. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. .254 left in the second quarter in a competitive matchup. Thank God. 7-7 Rams and Bears. And again, blowouts are great if it's your favorite team, that you're watching, like a lot of you Seahawks fans watching the Niners blow out that team right from the very start, and that's fine and dandy. And that's great when it's your team, but when it's not your team and you're watching games, you don't necessarily want to see blowout after blowout. You want to make sure that you're kind of, on the edge of your seat and you're engaged in the game, for 4 quarters, or at least, into the fourth quarter before, a winner is decided. The best games, as we know, and we've seen them, obviously with Wild Card Weekend, are the games that end up whoever has the ball last or potentially the last play of the game. And we obviously know that that's not going to happen in every game, but we had a hell of a start, to the playoffs in 2026. In those first games on the wild card weekend, those first 4 were electric. And then after those first 4, it hasn't been as exciting as those first. But again, it should get pretty dicey, not only in this game, but obviously moving forward, AFC, NFC championship game. If we end up getting Rams and Seahawks, that's must-see TV. If Bo Nix didn't get hurt, that would have been must-see TV with New England and Drake May, but, it kind of falls flat a little bit. But, if New England advances against the Hawks or the Rams, I do think it will be a fun Super Bowl. And again, we're getting very, very close to figuring out who is going to raise that Lombardi here in 2026. I mean, I think it's just the, appreciation for greatness that I have. And, I'm not a hater, it's like, yeah, the Saints are in the division and the Falcons and the Panthers, but I don't have as much hate, in me than a lot of people do in life, so it's like, of course, I love the rivalries. I dislike the Astros and Jose Altuve and some other individuals as well, depending on your fan base and what you have and whatnot. But, you'd like to be able to see competitive matchups, unless you end up playing, your main rival and you just stomp the crap out of them. And obviously you get a lot of joy in that. But, for others watching, you want it to be competitive. Nice 27-yard pass by Caleb Williams, deep middle to the Washington Husky alum, Rome Odunze. Nice job there by Rome. He doesn't really get a whole lot of opportunities nowadays, so I'm very happy that he's making the most of it as the clock winds down to 2nd down and 9. Now at the Rams 34 with that handoff up the middle, and that's going to go to the 2-minute warning. And if you're just tuning into the game, Sean McVay calling the play to Kyron Williams for a 4-yard touchdown rush in the first quarter, 7-0 Rams. Then we've seen Caleb Williams make some pretty nice deep throws, even in the snow, getting a touchdown pass in the beginning of the second quarter to DJ Moore. Best throw of the day so far, and we're sitting at a 7-7 tie. So, maybe some people assume that the Rams would have more points at this, particular point in the game. But again, with being on the road and being in the snow, it definitely some of the bigger plays, haven't happened yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to happen in the second half. Every big penalty, every big, turnover will be magnified in the second half, especially when it's 7-7 at this point. Two-minute warning, 7-7, Rams and Bears. 2nd down and 9 at the Rams 34. Yeah, and that Seahawk-Niner rivalry will never end. That obviously will, be something that is true and true. So it's like, with the Mariners and the Astros, that will never change. Our opinion of them will never change. They hate us. We hate them. And, I wouldn't want it any other way. So Caleb Williams, short left to Kyle Monangai. The only problem is the Astros are hated by more than just the teams within the division. They're hated by almost everyone. So there's equal hate to go around for a team like that. So, but the hate is deserved, if you end up, cheating, right? 5-yard pass from Caleb Williams to Kyle Monangai. 3rd down and 4 at the Rams 29. And again, we haven't seen Caleb throw that dumbass interception just yet. And I don't know if we're going to get it in the second half, but again, he's played much better than he did against the Packers. Knowing that the weather is not the greatest, you have to pick and choose your moments. And I like that he's not trying to be the hero and trying to, make throws where he may not be able to make. Shotgun set. Williams going short left to Colston Loveland. And great defense there by McCullough. And that's going to be incomplete. 4th down and 4 at the Rams 29. Field goal is up, and it is good. Cairo Santos, 48-yarder is good. Fantastic job there by the Bears. 10-7 Chicago. And now you got 1:10 to be able to tie it up or potentially to take a 4-point lead if you can get it into the end zone. But I love the rivalry games, Mariners versus Astros, Mariners versus Rangers, Mariners versus Yankees, and then now Mariners and Blue Jays. And then obviously, if you go on to the flip side, we already know how difficult it is when you end up playing the Dodgers or the Padres or the Phillies or the Cubs, but I like, a challenge. I know things are going to get tough when we play, the top dogs in the National League, but sometimes we get our ass kicked, but it's a kind of a good measuring stick, to see how you can match up, and towards the end of the year, when some of our guys were banged up, I feel like at the end of the year when we played the Dodgers at the very end, that wasn't who we were, but we were still able to rebound, after those losses, at home against the Dodgers and, playing against Scooball and, taking that to, game 5 and beating them and, going all the way to game 7 in the ALCS. It didn't work out to what we wanted. But it's not like the Blue Jays ended up being champion either, and you have to be very impressed that they were able to take that Dodger team to game 7. Savage was a beast. You saw Bieber and Scherzer do their thing, and it definitely opened a lot of eyes on a lot of those kind of role players on the Blue Jays that weren't really considered that good, and they were able to kind of showcase their talent. So, and again, I can't hate on that because at some point that's going to be us. And we're going to be the underdog and whatnot. And we know how tough it's going to be. And realistically, if we would have made, the World Series, chances are we probably wouldn't have made it to game 7. I mean, I would have, hoped and wished, that we could have maybe made it to that point. But realistically, with the injuries that we had and not having a healthy Brian Wu and everything else, maybe we get to game 6, but still, I like the way that we're progressing. Since 2022, we've been a lot of fun to watch. Obviously we haven't been to the playoffs every single year, but this is going to be a chance for us to go back-to-back playoffs for the first time in a long time. And if we're able to do it 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row, we're starting to get more more love from the media, more bandwagon fans that used to watch that will, back on the wagon. And again, eventually good things come to those who wait and who are patient. And again, especially if the organization is finally in and are going to be able to invest in the, team rather than only putting in 54% effort. So, for all the bitching and moaning that we had with the owners and the GM and the management, they've done a pretty good job in the last 2 years, and hopefully they'll continue to invest in the team. You invest, good things happen. If you sit back and, only do the minimum, you can't expect, crazy results above and beyond when you're only putting in so much effort. It's got to be a team effort. Cairo Santos kick 65 yards. Jordan Whittington with a nice 20-yard return. 1st down and 10 at the Rams 20. Yeah. And again, it's always, Astro players that are still on the team or former Astro players that ended up going somewhere else, or, guys coming back like Correa or guys leaving like Springer. It just feels like any person that was on that Astro team, back when they ended up going through their run, we're always going to have an issue with those players. And they always play us really, really well, but they play everyone well. That's just the problem, but it's always nice to be able to get a little payback. And I'm definitely looking for some. All right, we got 1:05 left. Let's see what Matthew Stafford and the Rams can do here. Shotgun set, short right to Puka Nacua. Nice 7-yard gain. Second down and 3 at the Rams 27. And you can tell, the Rams do respect the secondary for the Bears, one of the strongest pieces of their defense. And again, they know they have Devontae, they know they have Puka, and you got a lot of other, up-and-coming tight ends, that can get the job done. But you haven't really seen them test, the deep ball that often just yet. But I do assume you're going to get a few, not only here at the end of the half, but also in the second half. Shotgun set, second down and 3. Stafford going deep. Nice catch. Wow. Great hands. On cue. Nice play call there by McVay. Tyler Higbee, who's been injured for a good chunk of the year, and they got the deepest tight end room. They got like 5 guys that fucking can come in at tight end and get the job done. First down, Rams. What a play. Timeout, Los Angeles. And that's the big play that they needed now with 39 seconds left. Yeah, and Springer, had a fantastic year. And it also shows you, sometimes the guys that you trust the most, are human and they fuck up too, and again, Bizzardo was our best guy in the pen and he was the one that fucked up. One bad pitch, cost us, but again, it wasn't like it was our worst guy in the pen, and it could have been, not necessarily the worst guy, but it could have been a Gabe Spire or any of the other guys and whatnot. So, it's just one of those things that hurts, but it definitely lets you know that we're going in the right direction. And as long as we keep investing, it's almost inevitable that we are going to get to a World Series at some point, especially with the talent that we have. Little check down there. And a quick timeout here by the Rams. Second down and 6 with 30 seconds to go. But we definitely got to improve the bullpen. There's no doubt about that. Every team can improve their bullpen. Never can have enough depth, especially with pitching. Second down and 6, 10-7 Bears. Playing well at home. Haven't, given up too many big plays, considering they have, the NFL MVP at quarterback, the best duo at wide receiver in Puka and Devontae Adams, and a very capable, top 10 running back in Kyron Williams. And every once in a while, even Blake Corum can get you a first down here and there or a goal line touchdown. It's just that, is the offensive line going to do their job? That's the question. Little check down to Kyron Williams, breaks one tackle and another. First down, Rams. And they're looking to try to spike it, but they're out of timeouts here. And then a flag comes out. Farm system looks exciting, and again, if we're going to be making moves, make moves in the bullpen. It doesn't have to be sexy. It's like drafting an offensive lineman when there's other guys available. But if it ends up helping you win, that's all that matters. Sometimes you got to do, what's the best for the team, even if it's not like the sexy pick. Unnecessary roughness there by the Bears. And that's going to be on Dexter. That's a terrible penalty there for Chicago. First down and 10 at the Chicago 14. So you already know it's going to end up being a minimum of 10-10. But with 18 seconds left, it could end up being 14-10 Rams here at half. Shotgun set. Stafford going short right to Devontae Adams. Incomplete. Second down and 10 at the Chicago 14. We'll see if the Bears end up bringing a blitz off the safety or corner position like they've had some success early in this game in the second quarter. Yeah, and we're definitely going to see some questionable penalties throughout the game. Every game is going to have them. Second down and 10 at the Chicago 14, 10-7 Bears in a competitive, fun matchup. Not to say that the first game wasn't fun. I got a chance to spend a little bit more time with Paisley and spread out the walks and the time that we had together after doing 2 games yesterday. And a lot of turnovers, a lot of defense, which was exciting, but a little sloppy. But again, this one seems like it's going to be a little bit more exciting down the stretch. Stafford looking, going to the back of the end zone. Almost in that same spot. Tyler Higbee being tight end, incomplete. Third down and 10 at the Chicago 14, and you can't run the ball because you have no timeouts left. So pretty much, you got to throw it to the sideline and hope they step out of bounds or end up getting the touchdown if you're obviously in the end zone. Shotgun set, Stafford going short left, incomplete. And it looks like we're going to have a tie game here in just a moment. 9 seconds left, 4th down and 10, and the kicking unit should be coming out. But I'm very impressed, with the Bears and Caleb Williams, not forcing bad throws, understanding, that you are at home, you are playing in snow, you don't have to be Superman, you don't have to be the Iceman, what they call him, you just be you, and don't force it. Kick is up and good. And obviously, the Rams overall, throughout the year, we're the better team, but again, the Bears have been playing pretty good football, within the last month. And again, being at home in this, inclement weather is playing to their advantage on top of Caleb not making that dumb throw, for a bad interception, which we've seen quite a few times, not only against the Packers, but within the last month and a half. And we are at halftime, and you couldn't ask for a better halftime score. If I'm being honest, we got some good defense, we got some offense, and again, not as sloppy as a game as the first game. And again, it feels like both teams are going to get over 20. And again, that's the type of game that I want to be able to see. Again, blowouts are fun if your team is playing and your team wins. But if you end up getting blown out yourself, there's nothing fun about that. And then obviously, if you're an outsider looking in and you're not a fan of the Bears or the Rams and you just want to see something competitive, well, you're getting it here today. Two touchdowns by Kyron Williams and DJ Moore, 2 field goals, one by Cairo Santos, one by Harrison Mevis, and we're sitting at a 10-10 game. And again, I'm very, very happy that it's competitive at this point. And, especially when you have a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, capable running back like Kyron Williams, you got Puka and Devontae Adams and a lot of tight ends. For the Bears to be able to hold them to only 10 points, that's huge. And again, if you're actually looking, at the game itself, the Bears have a little bit of the momentum, and not to say that the Rams can't win this game. They definitely can. But if you're looking at the play calling and the scheme, overall, the play calling has been maybe slightly better, for the Rams than the Bears. Obviously, that 4th down conversion that didn't work out on 4th and 1, maybe really the only blip, But again, to make up for that 4th and 1 that they didn't get and getting Brisker and Kyron Gordon off the edge for those safety blitzes and corner blitzes, to me, that makes up, for that 4th and 1 call that didn't go through. And again, you got a very competitive game here, 10-10. And again, we've seen Ben Johnson, go 50% on 4th down, which is much better than going 0 for 3, against the Packers. But again, we know that the Bears are a very good second half team. Same thing with the Rams. And it's definitely a nice chess matchup, a back and forth between these two coaches. And again, I can't wait to be able to see what we get in the second half. 10-10 Rams and Bears. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. And tomorrow we'll be doing the last game in the college football season. Number 10, Miami Hurricanes versus number 1, Indiana Hoosiers. And very excited about that. And then once that is all said and done, then we will have to be tapping into a little bit of NBA and NHL, possibly WWE at some point, but it'll probably be NBA, NHL, and then NASCAR. Obviously, at the beginning of the month, we got to be able to do a few filler streams while we wait for baseball and the World Baseball Classic. And, once we get this, kind of rough patch, obviously finished, with, having football being wrapped up, and we're in that kind of in-between period while we're waiting for baseball to get going. And then once we end up getting into, obviously, mid to late February, and then obviously March, then we'll be back to a regular schedule of doing the Mariners every day. And I think that's that point where I'm probably the happiest, because again, it's not like, what do we do today? Or, what's the matchup that we should do? It's pretty much every single day we're doing the Mariners. And I can't wait to get back to that, grind. And it's a grind, no doubt about that. But, based on the success that we had last season, I'm very, very excited. I know a lot of you guys are excited as well. Got 8 minutes to go here before halftime is up. 10-10, Rams and Bears. Robert in the building. What's good? All the way from France, he says. All right, I'm going to go check up on Paisley here real quick. See how she's doing. And again, we are going to be back into the second half. The Rams are going to receive the second half kickoff in 7 minutes. If you have to go grab a snack, hit the bathroom, do that, and we'll be right back on it here in just a minute or two. At 4 minutes to go before we get into the second half. 10-10, Rams and Bears. All right, 3 minutes to go. Paisley Pup got a little snack. I tucked her in. She's ready for dad to be able to take her on a walk. But we got to figure out who's going to go to the NFC Championship game to Seattle to face the Seattle Seahawks. Will it be the rival Los Angeles Rams, or will it be the up-and-coming Chicago Bears? We will find out here momentarily. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. And if you're just tuning into the matchup, Kyron Williams with the first touchdown from Sean McVay, 7-0 Rams. Then we saw Caleb Williams with the best throw of the night to DJ Moore, threading the needle, 3-yard touchdown pass, making it 7-7. And then we saw field goals by Santos and Nevis to end the first half. 10-10 Rams and Bears, with a trip to the NFC Championship game on the line for Sean McVay or Ben Johnson. I'm very happy it's not 21-0 or 21-3 for either team. You know, I want to make sure we see some good competitive football at the end of the year. And we'll find out how competitive Miami will be against Indiana. I don't see any scenario of Miami winning that game, but hopefully they'll play better than Oregon did. And, we'll see what we get tomorrow in the Natty between the Hurricanes and the Indiana Hoosiers. And we will be live tomorrow for that particular matchup as well. All right, we're down to less than a minute to go here in the second half, and the Rams will be receiving the second half kickoff, and we'll see if they'll be able to get points right away with Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, and their duo receivers of Buka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Less than a minute to go. Looks like we're 20 seconds away. So everyone grab your snacks, grab your beverages, get settled in, and we're going to get hopefully a fantastic second half. And, the Rams are the better team overall. But again, since they are on the road, having to play in these snowy conditions, it definitely plays into the Bears' favor as long as Caleb doesn't make, those bad decisions. And in most games, he ends up forcing, a bad pick or two, but so far, has played clean, and that's why they have a 10-10 tie. Had to find a nice one, a Kyle Manungai, before we get going here. All right, baby, let's go. Oh, jalapeno poppers, huh? with the little Sapporo. Sounds like you're set for the second half. Rams 10, Bears 10, or the trip to the NFC Championship game. Nobody wants to go up to Seattle knowing how good they've been, at this point. And again, we will find out what team is going to earn it here between the Rams and the Bears. We got the Natty tomorrow between Miami and Indiana come through. I'll be calling that game. And at some point, we'll be doing some NBA and some, Seattle Kraken NHL to kind of pass the time for some filler streams, unless we end up just doing some freestyle streams when we just talk about, whatever, baseball, Mariners, or whatever we decide to talk about at that time. I'm open to doing something like that as well. It just kind of depends on who shows up and what kind of support that we can get. Cairo Santos kicks 62 yards, and Ronnie Rivers with a nice 23-yard return. First down and 10 at the Rams 26. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. And I'm so happy that it's not 21-0 or 21-3 and it's just like, or the game is already over. Like, I'm really, really happy that the Bears, ended up playing great defense, taking advantage of the home field advantage and the snow. And I'm really happy that Caleb hasn't fucked up yet. Now we still got a half to go to see, how he plays. But usually that ends up being the difference. And so far, Caleb has been great with all things considered. Hand off to Blake Corum off that left side. Nice 7-yard run. Austin Booker, the DN for the Bears with the tackle. Second down and 3 at the Rams 33. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. And off to Blake Corum again off that left side. 6-yard gain. Andrew Billings there again. First down, Rams. Move the chains. Yeah, plus also feeding off the momentum, after being down 21-3 against the Packers and scoring 25 in the fourth quarter. If that happens to any team, I don't care if it's the Bears or any team that was left at this point in the playoffs, of course, you're going to be confident and you're at home. It's not like you're in Los Angeles right now, and obviously that would have favored the Rams tremendously, not having to play, in cold weather on the road in the snow. So. Hand off to Jordan Whittington. No gain. And again, trying to, catch them off guard, but that's not really the play to do it. Jaquan Brisker with another tackle from the safety position, who's been fabulous here today, sideline to sideline. Second down and 10 at the Rams 39. Shotgun set. Stafford going short left to Colby Parkinson, one of the 4 or 5 tight ends they have on the tight end room, who are very reliable for the most part. Jackson with the coverage and the tackle. Third down and 4 at the Rams 45. I can't believe we're so close to football ending. The Natty is tomorrow, then college football is done, and then after this game is over, we only have 3 games left. AFC, NFC championship games, Super Bowl, and then we're done. But then that's also exciting because once football ends, we know baseball is right around the corner, and I know that gets a lot of us excited. Shotgun set, Stafford. Short left to Puka Nacua, incomplete, and that's going to be 4th down and 4 at the Rams 45. And so far, if you've been watching the, battle up front, the line of scrimmage, there really isn't a dominant, team. Both teams are doing pretty good on the O-line and the D-line. And again, that's why the score is reflected 10-10. Obviously you've seen, the Bears defensive coordinator dial up some nice creative blitzes from the corner and safety position, but basically the guys up front, are equally doing a pretty good job. There really hasn't been a true winner yet on the O-line and D-line for either team. and Ethan Evans punts 51 yards. And they're going to dial it up on the Chicago 4. Wow. Yeah, I wish I could eat, foods like that. I used to, not really eat the healthiest and whatnot. But, for me to be able to have even something like, stuffed jalapeno poppers and something like that, that's something I could only do like once a month. I'm definitely on a different type of workout regimen. And, if you want to be able to keep the weight off, temptations are a bitch. It's like I love, American food, Asian food, Mexican food, you name it. I'll probably try it and I'll probably enjoy it. I love going to Flavor Town, but that's kind of the issue. If you want to be able to, lose weight and keep it off, and you're going to be exercising on a high level, I have to kind of turn into, kind of like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, where you end up having like that cheat meal. Except for him, he usually has like a cheat meal once a week. For me, I can only really have a cheat meal once a month, and obviously I'm not working out like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and I'm not going to be that guy that wakes up at 2:30 to 3:30 a.m. and start hitting the weights and hitting the gym and whatnot. But if you can end up having a positive regimen and a positive routine, not only can you lose the weight, but you can also keep it off. But I won't lie, I do miss eating a really good burger. I really miss eating a big bowl of pasta. Having some chicken Alfredo or spaghetti, or eating a really good quality burger and fries. But sometimes you got to make sacrifices. First down and 10 at the Chicago 4 as we wait for the commercial break to come back. But I do, try to at least have one good meal that I normally would never eat. And again, it's taken some adjustment, in these last 2 to 3 years to eating as many vegetables that I've been eating. But again, you start to realize, when things are like steamed and cooked properly, a lot of outsiders looking in would be like, oh, vegetables compared to all this other delicious food. It's kind of a turnoff, but, if prepared the right way, it's doable, and whatnot. But I'll definitely be looking forward to a good meal once I, meet up with my best friend. But I know mentally he probably won't be in a very good spot, considering he's a Duck and a Bronco fan. Already had to go through what happened with Indiana. Both of us had to go through that pain. And then now he's going through a pain that I can't even understand, losing Bo Nix in overtime and not even have access to your starting quarterback against the Patriots, in the AFC Championship game. The pain is real. Handoff to DeAndre Swift, bouncing off that right tackle, and Omar Spates, the linebacker for the Rams, first there with the coverage. 3-yard run there by DeAndre Swift. Second down and 7 at the Chicago 7. Yeah, I mean, you would have told me a few years ago that I would be walking 5 miles a day, 7 days a week for 2 years straight, not missing a day. I would say you're fucking crazy. And on top of that, not drinking beer or alcohol and not eating fast food every day, I'd be like, you're nuts. There's just no way in hell, But again, I'm 90 pounds lighter, and I've been able to keep that off for a couple years, and I don't plan on going back to that person that I was, even though I do miss Flavor Town. But I don't miss looking in the mirror, and seeing the reflection of not who I was. And again, that will definitely give you motivation to change your ways. Shotgun set, Caleb Williams, short left to DJ Moore. Nice 6-yard catch. Third down and 1 at the Chicago 13. Appreciate it, man. And I don't think I've really always been kind of a fat boy. I had my moments growing up, in elementary school where, maybe a little overweight and whatnot, but I played a lot of sports. So, during sports season, when I got a little bit older, obviously it wasn't like that anymore. Maybe one time when I was, somewhere between 1st and 5th grade, but I think all of us get a little pudgy at that point, eating all the amazing snacks that we had available back in those times, and maybe not playing organized sports on a team can get you a little, chubby in that way. But, after 7th grade and beyond, or even after 5th grade and beyond, it was, a little bit different, but as you, go from, high school to college and become an adult, then obviously you don't really see a lot of the people that you've seen in the past, and, decision making and temptations can definitely get the best of you. Caleb Williams going off that right side for a 2-yard gain. Puna Ford there first with the tackle. And a hurry up here from Caleb Williams going deep to DJ Moore, incomplete. 2nd down and 10 at the Chicago 15. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, I mean, I really do miss, a lot of the amazing, tasting foods and whatnot, but also realizing, that even when I don't eat the healthiest, like even during Thanksgiving and Christmas, eating turkey and ham and, eating the regular foods, I can see my weight go up, 5 to 10 pounds just based on eating food like that for a couple days. So it's crazy. Once you get to 30 and 40 and up, your body definitely will adjust with your metabolism, and it's a lot harder to lose weight when you get older. This is facts. Shotgun set, Swift off that right guard, nice 8-yard gain. Davis and Landman there first with the tackle. 3rd down and 2 at the Chicago 23. But again, a big part of it, is having the routine here with you guys, but also Paisley. I mean, if I didn't have Paisley, it would be far-fetched for me to be able to have the discipline to walk 5 miles a day by myself and do that 7 days a week for 2 years straight. It wouldn't happen. So, I owe a lot of my, positive choices in my life because of her. And, I used to have a lot of depression and anxiety. And ever since Paisley has been with me here with the family, I haven't had a bad day in a long time. Bouncing out to the outside by DeAndre Swift, breaking 1 tackle. 1st down, Bears. Bear down. Josiah Stewart, the linebacker, first there with the tackle. 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 28. And again, if you never have like your soul cat or your soul dog, it won't make any sense, but when you end up having, that special pet in your life that changes your life for the better, there's so many things that you can achieve, even things that you thought you never could do. Hand off to Swift, bouncing off that right side and getting about 4. Blake and Davis there with the gang tackle. 2nd down and 6 at the Chicago 32. But, if you keep your body in motion, that keeps you alive, so I know that I'm going to not only do it for me, but I'm going to do it for her. And again, giving her the best life that I possibly can is, one of the goals in my life, on top of, trying to be able to make my dreams come true on this channel as well. A lot of effort needs to be put in, but, if you don't quit and you got amazing people in your corner like you guys, we know that we're going to be able to hit those amazing numbers down the road. Under center, Caleb Williams going deep to Colston Loveland, incomplete. 3rd down and 6 at the Chicago 32. But once you start, doing things in like, a routine, it just comes natural, in the morning, afternoon, late at night, and making sure I have, obviously work to do, with, games and whatnot. So it's all about having that good structure and positivity in your life. And nothing will drain you faster than negative people that are in your life, either, family or friends or roommates or people that you're living with. It definitely can pull you under, and you got to be able to get yourself out of that bad situation. Shotgun set, Caleb going short right to Rome Adunzier, the former Husky product, incomplete. And a lot of the throws to Rome, they're heavily contested. He doesn't really get a lot of opportunities where Rome is, wide open, where he can end up getting yak yards. I mean, more times than not, it feels like Rome is single covered, double covered, and it's not really that good of an opportunity for him. And I would like to be able to see him get loose, in the middle of the field. But again, based on the scheme, there's not a whole lot of opportunities for him. Torrey Taylor, the Bears punter with the punt. And it goes about 44 yards. And then Xavier Smith for the Rams with the fair catch. 1st down and 10 at the Rams 24. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. 10-10, Rams and Bears. And again, I'm so happy that the Bears showed up, and it's actually a close game. It definitely makes me feel better about things. And, and for the most part, the first game between the Patriots and Texans, even though they had all of those turnovers, it was a fun game to watch. And obviously in the fourth quarter, in the last 8 minutes or so, you knew that there was no way that Houston was going to come back. But at least it took, 3 quarters, plus to, kind of figure it out. But, again, not every game is going to end in a Seahawk blowout of the Niners. But again, I did enjoy that blowout with the Seahawks getting a little payback on their rival, the San Francisco 49ers. You know what's crazy too? If they would have benched CJ Stroud in the second half and they put in, the backup, what could have happened? Would they have Davis Mills? Would have that been enough to come back and win? We'll never know. I think that they would have played better with him in, and again, after CJ Stroud, they want to make sure, you give your starting quarterback that confidence. But also it takes a good coach, to be able to understand this is the guy. You are going to be our quarterback, but sometimes you got to make a move, just like with Alabama and Jalen Hurts and Tua, right? Sometimes there's a guy that's struggling early on and, you want that to be the guy. But if you end up, having a capable backup, sometimes if you make the move, it can turn into a big win. Sometimes it'll still end up in a loss, but if you don't give that other guy a chance, and you got to think Davis Mills is a backup quarterback, probably top 5, as far as, maybe even top 3, backups, hell, maybe even top 2, maybe he's the best backup quarterback in the league. But, after having 4 interceptions, in the first half, I think I would have said, CJ, this is still your team, but we got to go with the other guy to give us a chance to win. Because you knew you weren't going to win with CJ if he played the whole game. And, obviously a lot of sloppy turnovers for both teams, fumbles for New England, picks, for majority, for the Texans. But I would have loved to seen, that gutsy call, but again, that would have probably broken the locker room a little bit, obviously, going to the backup. But, sometimes you got to make tough decisions. And it's a big sack lunch. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Big one there. But they still end up getting the football back. Stafford is lucky. Hurry up here to Kyron Williams. Hands off. Bouncing it to the outside. Off that left guard. 10-yard gain. Kevin Byard the third. The safety there with the tackle. 3rd down and 8 at the Rams 26. I mean, you don't expect any quarterback at this point to be throwing for 4 picks, and again, CJ, when healthy, normally, is a top 10, top 12 quarterback. But again, you also have to give credit on the other side. New England's defense was very, very good, and again, sometimes when you get players that, play out of character, it's not just him. Sometimes you got to give credit to the other side. 3rd down and 8 at the Rams 26. The Patriots did have a top 10 defense all year, even though they weren't talked about like Denver, Houston, or Seattle. You have to give, credit where credit is due sometimes. Shotgun set, Stafford, short right to Kanata Mumfield. And that's going to be 5 yards. 4th down and 3 at the Rams 31. Nice job by Kyler Gordon. Coming up big with another substantial play here in the second half. 6 minutes left here in the third quarter, and we're knotted up at 10. Ethan Evans, 57-yard punt, and Devin Duvernay with a 10-yard return. 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 22. Defense wins games, defense wins championships. And again, we know that the Rams defense, has, looked kind of off, at times in the last month and a half. But again, at this point, both defenses playing pretty well, considering the game is 10-10 with only 5:30 to go. And again, every big penalty, every big play here on out is going to be magnified times 10, because again, based on how the flow of the game is going, one, bad call or one big play could end up being the difference between the Rams, playing Seattle in the NFC Championship game, or the Bears, getting the upset victory at home and playing Seattle next week. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. 10-10, Rams and Bears with a trip to the NFC Championship game on the line at Seattle. 5:30 left in the third quarter. Who wants it more, Rams or Bears? Appreciate all the congratulations. But again, I wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys or Paisley, and just being able to have Paisley in my life and something positive that I can do pretty much every day, as long as there's something worth doing, giving me that good structure in my life. Again, I appreciate you guys very, very much. DeAndre Swift with the toss, bouncing it to the outside. 2nd down and 6 at the Chicago 27. It's my 14th year of streaming, 10th on YouTube this year. So, I know this is going to be a special year. When I first started, I gave myself a 10-year plan, and, we still have many, many goals to reach, to hit 25,000, 50,000, 75,000, 100,000 subs, and to go from 5+ million views to 10 million. So we still got a lot of things to accomplish, but I'm very excited for the opportunity. Little screen pass there to DJ Moore. 8-yard gain, curl there with the tackle out of bounds. 1st down, Bears. And again, I'm a little surprised on how good Caleb is playing, here at home in the snow, and not forcing it. We've seen him force the football a lot this season, and again, he's been almost a completely different type of player compared to that Packer game. And again, that's what's keeping them in this game against the Rams tied up at 10. Reflect with a 3-er. Appreciate you. Every dollar counts. Stacks. Racks with the little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. And Caleb throws it in traffic. That could have almost been an interception there. And he's lucky. Incomplete. And obviously, the better that the Mariners do, the better we're going to do here on the channel. So, that's going to be kind of the one thing. If the Mariners continue, to have success, every single year, for 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row, even if we end up missing the playoffs one year and then, going back to back, missing it, you want to be able to go every year. But realistically, there's probably going to be, some times in the next 15, 20 years where, we might go a year without making it, but hopefully we'll be able to go on a string of, playoff appearances consecutively. And, if we can end up getting to a World Series and obviously winning it all, that could be really the thing that catapults the channel to a whole nother stratosphere. And there's a good chance that can happen. 5-yard penalty there on the Bears' false start. Hi, how are you? Paisley's in here now. Rome Odunze with the false start. Rare for him. Second down and 15. Shotgun set. Rams rush 4. Caleb, floater towards the sideline. Intercepted! And that's what happens when you throw into double coverage. I was trying to let, the Bears fans and, understanding that Caleb has been clean up to this point, but he has a tendency, of trying to force the football and to trying to be the quote-unquote Iceman. The only Iceman I know is George Gervin. And again, you want to be able to be, noted as the Iceman. You can't play like that. And again, throwing into double coverage, Kobe Durant, I see you. And again, when you can end up getting a guy that can get 1, 2, 3 picks in a game, Kobe Durant is one of those guys. And again, big play by Kobe Durant. Terrible throw by Caleb Williams. And let's see if the Rams can make Chicago pay off the turnover. .403 left in the third quarter. 10-10 Rams and Bears. It's just a matter of time, for a guy like Caleb, and it's a guy, you were number 1 pick. Obviously you've made strides since you've gotten Ben Johnson, but you still kind of have that tendency, that you want to put the whole team on your shoulders. And again, it's different, if you end up being Josh Allen, or Jalen Hurts, or someone of that magnitude. But, he already had Jared Goff in the past. And again, he took Goff and that offense to a whole nother level. But, if Caleb ever wants to be known, as a united top 10 quarterback by all the fan bases, the consistency has to be better, and you have to have a better decision-making skills, and obviously the throwing motion and the footwork has, maybe slightly improved from last year under Ben Johnson's mentorship and toolage. But, if you've been watching Caleb game in and game out, again, there's going to be a few amazing plays that he makes for touchdowns, but there's usually going to be 2 or 3 like, oh my God, what were you thinking kind of plays. And obviously a young quarterback is going to go through that regardless if it's, Caleb Williams or any of the other young stars, coming into the league. But, if you're going to be able to win a big game and trying to get your team, maybe a year or 2 early under Ben Johnson to an NFC championship game, you got to be better. And again, even though the Rams secondary hasn't been the greatest in the last month, if you make it easy for them, to throw in double coverage, they're going to get you every time. Stafford, under center, short right to Colby Parkinson, incomplete. Second down and 10 at the 50. And we're just waiting for that big Puka Nacua play to happen. It's going to happen at some point in this quarter or in the fourth quarter, where he ends up getting into the end zone or almost in the end zone on a huge 30 to 50 yard play. It's just, when is that going to happen? It just feels like it's almost inevitable. And what are the Bears going to do to counteract that in the fourth quarter? We'll find out. Not to say that Devontae Adams or one of the 4 or 5 tight ends, they could be the one that could make that play. But traditionally, if you watch Rams games, if Puka doesn't score in the first half, usually the second half, if the game is close, they're usually going to be looking in his direction. Stafford going deep to Devontae Adams, incomplete. Third down and 10 at the 50. And I don't like the Rams play calling here with Sean McVay. Instead of just, running the football and being able to get third and short, throwing it on first and second down. Come on, man. You got to be better here. I mean, especially if you have Blake Corum and Kyron Williams. And I get it. You have amazing options at wide receiver and tight end, but I don't like this play calling here by Sean McVay at all. Off the turnover, and you're going to throw it 3 times? Jesus Christ. Do you even want to win? Shotgun set. Stafford going short right to Puka Nacua. Incomplete. And after that great double coverage interception, are you even going to get anything? Now it's 4th and 10 at the 50. What a wasted opportunity for the Rams. Terrible play calling. That was even worse. Those 3 calls back to back to back was worse than the 4th and 1 that the Bears had in the first half. That was absolutely terrible. Maybe not as terrible that they deserve to lose because of those 3 plays, but you got to be better. Jolly in the building. What's good? I know, man. What a stud. Stacks. Racks with a little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Another $5 holla from our boy Jolly. Appreciate you. Panthers in the building. NFC South, baby. You know, we might have been one of the worst divisions in football, but at least you represented the NFC South in the best way possible besides winning. You know, again, you guys really set the tone, you know, how the playoffs were going to be. And, you know, I'm glad that you guys made it over us, because if we would have hosted a playoff game, hell, we would have, you know, probably lost by 20 or 30. So, you know, I know it's different because, you know, obviously an L is an L, whether it's by 1 or 100. But, you know, I can't wait to be able to see how you guys get better going into next year. Ethan Evans there with the 50-yard punt. And that's going to be 1st down and 10 at the Chicago 20. Yeah. And honestly, if I'm, you know, being real, I would love for the Panthers to get better. I would love to see Michael Penix Jr. get healthy for, you know, a full year. They get better. And then if the Saints end up being the worst team you know, dead last, that's not going to hurt my feelings one bit, you know. But again, I got to get rid of Todd Bowles, you know. And hopefully after this upcoming year, you know, they'll get rid of Bowles and, you know, I would like Mike Tomlin, you know, back with the organization. He's going to take a year off. And I know that he's thinking about Tampa. But again, you got to fire someone to be able to make room for someone else. But, you know, I think that would be, you know, if he wants to. And, you know, he wants to spend time with his kids and his family. So I totally understand. You know, but once you're away from the game for about a year or two, sometimes, you know, certain coaches that are successful, you know, they get the bug back to coach again. And, you know, I would rather have Mike Tomlin than Todd Bowles any day of the week. And it definitely would, I think, re-energize the organization, just like when we had Bruce Arians and whatnot. And, you know, if you have a defensive-minded coach and then you can't play defense, that means that you need to make a change. And, you know, obviously losing Liam Cohen was pretty big for us too. We've seen what kind of success he's had with Trevor Lawrence. You know, another guy that, you know, kind of looked like he was going to be a bust, but finally finding the right coordinator and the right supporting cast. And it finally looks like, you know, Trevor Lawrence has got his mentor finally. And, you know, to go from losing Liam Cohen and to have to go with Grizzard, I mean, you know, everyone knows when you have a good OC and a good DC and then they end up leaving and going somewhere else, and then you have another replacement, just not the same. You know, you hope and wish that you're going to get similar results. But again, you know, like the Detroit Lions, you know, I imagine that a lot of them, imagine if Ben Johnson was still the OC for the Lions, they would have made the playoffs this year, you know, over the Bears. There's no doubt about that, you know. And again, it shows you the impact of Ben Johnson on this young Bear team, and also the impact of the Lions of not having him anymore. And again, a pretty drastic difference. Shotgun set, Luther Burden off to that right side, no gain. Cameron Kinchins, the other safety there with the tackle. 2nd down and 10 at the Chicago 20. Well, obviously he's not coaching any teams right now, so he'll, you know, be away from the game for a year or two, you know, but he was one of our coordinators, you know, back in the day. So, you know, again, if you ever have a coach, you know, that ends up going to another team, but they started off as a, you know, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, you know, cornerbacks coach, whatever it may be, they remember those times, you know. And again, if you have good history with a coach that remembers the good times when he was there, you know, sometimes that comes full circle, you know, at the maybe end of his career. And, you know, I don't know what the chances are, you know, of getting Tomlin next year. But again, if Foles ends up getting fired and Tomlin says he's going to come back, Tampa's going to be at the top of the list as one of the top, you know, 3 destinations. So I just need a change. Better defensive coordinator, better offensive coordinator, better head coach. I don't want to waste Baker Mayfield's prime. Shotgun set, Williams bouncing it to the outside, and Kyle Monangai catching that 9-yard pass. Nice job by Monangai. 1st down, Bears. Bear down. Nice job by Kyle Monangai, bringing a little electricity here for the Bear offense in the 3rd quarter. Hand off to Monangai, bouncing off to the right side. 4-yard gain. Hamilton and Hampton there with the tackle. 2nd down and 6 at the Chicago 41. Yeah, McDaniels wouldn't for the Dolphins. That you wouldn't want that as your head coach. Obviously they gave him a chance to interview for offensive coordinator, and then obviously if they fire Bowles, that would be the guy that you could promote from OC to head coach. But I don't want him as a head coach though. I wouldn't mind a player like that, player coach, like that as a play caller. But I wouldn't want him as my head coach. Caleb Williams scrambling to that outside, gaining about 5. And very close to that 1st down marker. 3rd down and 1 at the Chicago 46. I mean, some guys are just better suited as calling plays rather than, being a leader and being a head coach and having to call plays. It's a lot of responsibility, and, some guys can do both, be the head coach and the defensive coordinator, be the head coach and call the plays, but again, sometimes, it works better when you only have one role. You just call plays, you're just the head coach, and then you have really good, competent, defensive and offensive coordinators underneath to be able to relieve some of the stress. And then if you need to step in and, call a few plays here and there, then you have that option. Hand off to Monangai, bouncing off that left side. Loss of 1. Jared Verse in there with the tackle with Landman, and that's going to be the end of the 3rd quarter, and we're still knotted up at 10. Bears fans have to feel very excited that they're not down by 3, 7, 10, 13, 17, and they actually have a chance. The only problem is if you win this game, you're not beating Seattle, obviously in the NFC Championship game, but it would be a good notch under the belt, for Ben Johnson to show how good of a coach he really is, to go from a team like Detroit, who might have missed their window, joining a team like the Bears that was dead last in the division for years and years and years. And in the first year, with a very young squad, they're 1 quarter away, from being able to go to the NFC Championship game. And, even if you don't go to the Super Bowl, that's still a very successful season, for a team that a lot of us didn't really think that was going to do a whole lot in year 1 with Ben Johnson. I knew that they would be better, but I don't think anyone anticipated the Bears being in this position today. Facts. 10-10, Rams and Bears. Kyren Williams with a 4-yard rush to start the game off. Then we had a beautiful Caleb Williams to DJ Moore touchdown, making it 7-7. Cairo Santos and Harrison Mevis with field goals right before the first half ended. No score in the 3rd quarter for either team, which is a little shocking. And now it's really up for grabs. I mean, again, this is a game that the Rams, you would have thought would have won, and they still could, that they were going to win by somewhere between 3 and 13. I don't think anyone anticipated the Rams, winning in a blowout, especially being on the road and playing in the snow. Now, if the game was at home, then you could see, maybe the Rams by, 7 or more, or maybe somewhere between 7 and 14 in a win if they were at home, maybe even more, but obviously this is kind of the tiebreaker where you're evening things out. You're on the road, it's in the cold, it's snowing. Caleb has fucked up a couple times, but the Rams haven't been able to get points, off the turnovers. And that's why this game is as close as it is. Most teams that get picks or fumbles off Caleb, they end up scoring off of those. So right now, the Bears have to feel pretty lucky with all things considered. Stafford doesn't have a touchdown pass. How often does that happen? Fucking never, right? Caleb is 15 for 26, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, but they haven't scored any points off the picks. So, again, it's anybody's game here. And, again, we will find out, defense wins games, defense wins championships. And we'll see if the Bears have the edge here in the 4th quarter. I mean, if this version of the Rams shows up in Seattle, you're going to get blown out. You know, again, defenses have been pretty good for either team, but, you know, you have to be much better than both of these teams have been within the first 3 quarters. But realistically, even if you combine both of these teams, they're not beating Seattle. You know, these two teams, you know, have, you know, some really good star power on both sides of the ball, but the way that the Seahawks are playing right now, like the Patriots, it's almost inevitable. It feels like we're going to get a rematch of a previous Super Bowl with the Seahawks and the Patriots. Maybe a different outcome this time around. Kyron Williams bouncing off that left guard with a 7-yard gain. Second down and 3 at the Rams 16. And we'll have to see if we get any timed blitzes from the corner and safety position for the Bears to kind of even out some of the big playability for the Rams. But it's pretty even with the O-line and the D-line up front. You know, you haven't really seen a whole lot from either team. And, I mean, overall, you know, the Bears have the momentum. You know, at this point, the Rams started off strong, but, you know, since the second quarter, it's been pretty much, you know, Bears with the momentum, even though they made a few mistakes with interceptions with Caleb. But, again, the Rams haven't scored off of it. So you're sitting here at a tie game, 10-10. And off to Kyron Williams, bouncing off that right side for a 4-yard gain. Andrew Billings, the D tackle for the Bears, they're first with the tackle. First down and 10 at the Rams 20. Move the chains. Hand off to Kyron Williams, bouncing off that right tackle. No gain. Jalen Johnson, another good player for the Bears that we haven't mentioned today, with the stop. Second down and 10 at the Rams 20. Shotgun set. Stafford going short right to Colby Parkinson. Oh my, this is a big play. Go, go, go. First down, Rams. 35-yard pass from Stafford to Parkinson. You knew that there was going to be some deep plays at some point. The Bears defense have been able to, you know, minimize the damage, but great yak yards on there, getting about, you know, a 17 or 18-yard catch and then doubling it up with the yards after catch. Unbelievable. 35-yard pass. 32 yak yards after that little dump down. First down and 10 at the Chicago 45. Beautiful play. Not often you're going to see a 3-yard catch go for 35. Hand off to Kyron Williams, bouncing off that right guard. Dexter there with the coverage and the tackle for the Bears. Second down and 6 after that 4-yard gain by Kyron Williams. And we're really going to be able to see, you know, who's going to be the best guru at calling plays here in the fourth quarter. Will it be Sean McVay or Ben Johnson? Bears defense has played better than expected. Rams offense has played less, you know, dominant than expected. And again, we still got 11 minutes to go for big plays to happen, but pretty impressive to have a 10-10 game at this point. Almost picked. Oh my, that could have shifted the momentum. Oh my goodness. So close of getting that interception. Colby Parkinson, the intended tight end there. Jackson with the coverage. Shotgun set. Stafford, short middle to Puka Nacua, and you assume that Puka's going to get a few looks here in the fourth quarter. Nice 13-yard pass from Stafford to Puka. First down, Rams. Move the chains. And again, it's just a matter of time before they come up with a big play to get this game to be 17-10 Rams. But again, they have Devontae Adams and a bunch of capable tight ends that could end up getting the score as well. Shotgun set. Stafford going deep to Terrence Ferguson and complete. Second down and 10 at the Chicago 28. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. $11:18 left here in the fourth quarter. 10-10 game. A little bit of defense, a little bit of offense, a little lower scoring than a lot of us would prefer, but at least it's a close game. I mean, it's better than the score being 24-3, and then we're just kind of waiting for the game to end, already knowing who's going to advance against Seattle. So, again, a little bit, less than expected for the Rams, and, maybe the Bears playing a little better than expected, at this point. But, again, anytime you can have a close game late is always exciting. And did the Bears just pick that off? What's the call on the field? There's no call on the field yet. They're going to say runner down by contact, but let's see a replay. Bears player had the football. Stafford short middle to Devontae Adams. But then you had Stevenson and Edmonds right there. So he has the ball. Knee is down, and then it gets ripped out. Woo! They got lucky. Oh, my. Yeah, good completing the catch there and getting that knee down. But, man, great effort there by Chicago, not giving up on the play. And, they're trying to pull a Charles Peanut Tillman, which usually punches the football out. But ripping the football out was something that he was good at as well. And Rams have to, take a little sigh of relief that Devontae got his knee down. That could have definitely shifted the momentum in this game in the fourth. 10 minutes to go here in the fourth quarter. First down and 10 at the Chicago 16. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. My man. Hand off to Kyron Williams, gaining 4 off that left tackle. DeMarco Jackson, the linebacker for the Bears, with the tackle and the coverage. Second down and 6 at the Chicago 12. So now the Rams are going to get 3, but are they going to be able to get the touchdown? And again, points are going to be a premium here. And it's going to be very interesting to see how aggressive, McVay and Johnson are here in the fourth quarter, considering the game is 10-10. And I don't think either coach anticipated it being tied going into the fourth quarter. And going to Kyron Williams 3 times in a row, bouncing it off that right tackle for a 5-yard gain. Gervon Dexter Sr., the D tackle for the Bears with the stop. Third down and 1 at the Chicago 7. No huddle. Stafford, short right to Kanata Mumfield. Incomplete. Don't like that play call. And again, the play calls on 3rd and 4th down haven't really been that good. Again, they definitely have been very risky play calls, to say the least. It's like, why would you go for that particular pass on 3rd down and 1? Just get the first down if you want to be able to throw for the touchdown. Do a QB sneak with Stafford. Do a tush push. Hand it off to Blake Corum since he's a little bit bigger. Like, why throw that pass, in double coverage on that particular play? Fourth down and 1 here now at the Chicago 7. And they decide to give it to Nacua, and he gets just enough. Wow, 2-yard run. Puka Nacua off that right end. Byard and Montez Sweat were there, but not after the first down was made. That was a good play call by McVay. That made up for that questionable, 3rd down and 1. First and goal now at the Chicago 5. When in doubt, give the ball to your best player. Nice job there by Puka. Kyron Williams off that right side. Touchdown, Rams. And there it is. Going to Kyron Williams heavy, and he gets the big touchdown in the fourth quarter. 8:50 left in the fourth. Kyron Williams giving them the lead, and that electricity. Extra point is up and good. 17-10 Rams. Now we just have to pray that the Bears can compete and match the touchdown. As long as Caleb doesn't throw into fucking double coverage, they might actually be able to get there. They got Kyle Monangai, who is a fan favorite. You got DeAndre Swift. You got one of the up-and-coming tight ends in Colston Loveland. You got rookie Luther Burden III that hasn't got too many opportunities just yet. Or you might be able to go to the guy that got you your first touchdown in DJ Moore. Nice touchdown there by the Rams. Nice play call there by Sean McVay, especially on that 4th down play to Puka that set up that touchdown for Kyron Williams. Nice job. 14 plays, 91 yards, taking 6 minutes and 2 seconds off the clock. And that's how you end up finding a way to be able to impose your will against your opponent on the road. Nice job there for the Rams. But you got 8:50 left here for Ben Johnson. We'll see what he cooks up. And they have enough time, but again, a lot of pressure. 8:50 left. You assume the Bears will have 2 chances to be able to get this game tied up with Caleb, DeAndre, Colston, DJ, Luther, and Kyle. And then tomorrow's stream will be the number 10 Miami Hurricanes with Malachi Toney going against the number 1 Indiana Hoosiers, led by Fernando Mendoza. Can't wait for the Natty tomorrow. I just hope that it ends up being competitive and not, a 20, 30, 40-point blowout, which could happen, considering how good Indiana has been, not just at quarterback, but at running back, wide receiver, tight end, O-line, D-line, defense, coaching. It's been a complete package for the Hoosiers, and, it's crazy to be able to think of a team that really wasn't on anyone's radar until 2 years ago, last year and this year, and to be able to, overcome all the odds and being able to potentially be champion is wild, for a team like Indiana that used to be known as a basketball school, not really anymore. But, it's great for sports when you can end up seeing a team kind of come out of nowhere and be able to impose its dominance. And again, you got Ohio State, you got Michigan, Penn State, teams that normally, were at the top. And again, Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA were added to that mix. But again, the Big Ten is king. And I'm very interested to see how the ACC matches up with Miami tomorrow. And hopefully they play better than Oregon did. And we end up having a game that ends up being decided in the 4th. But as good as Indiana is, that one might be over by halftime. 8:50 left here in the 4th quarter, 17-10 Rams. And Ethan Evans kicks 59 yards. Devin Duvernay gets a nice 30-yard return. First down and 10 at the Chicago 37. 63 yards away. 14 lead changes in the 4th quarter. 5 teams have won after trailing in the final 3 minutes. Both most in the postseason history in this 2025 postseason. So obviously those first 4 games were maybe the most electric that we've ever seen, to start a playoff run, at the end of the year. And some of the games have been, not so close, like the Seahawks blowing out the Niners yesterday. But for the most part, it's been pretty close in a majority of the games. Williams, short left. And going to his offensive tackle. Incomplete. Just throw it away. Don't even throw to your offensive tackle, my guy. You're just asking him to have that tipped in the air, get intercepted, and the game is over. Got to be smarter there, Caleb. Man in motion. Caleb. And has a hole. Go, go, go. Nice juke and hurdle there. There you go. Nice job. Caleb Williams. Scrambling and gambling, looking like that USC Trojan on that run. First down, Bears. And again, if you're going to be a liability with your arm, you might as well use your legs once in a while. 26-yard run by Caleb Williams. That was beautiful. Cam Curl was the one that finally caught up to him. And great blocking downfield by the wide receivers and tight ends as well. First down and 10 at the Rams 37. And let's see if that ends up sparking a little bit of momentum for the Chicago Bears. Nice job by Caleb there. And again, he's going to make some bad mistakes with his decision-making, but big electricity play there. And off to DeAndre Swift for a 4-yard gain. Stewart there first with the tackle. Second down and 6 at the Rams 33. Kind of crazy as talented as Cole Kmet is. You don't even really see him get the ball anymore. And obviously he had a pretty good rapport with Justin Fields, but obviously they drafted Colston Loveland for a reason. But it would be nice to be able to see both of them in at the same time. And as soon as I say that, they're both in right now. And again, doing a double tight end set like they used to do with Gronk and Hernandez back in the day, that could really challenge a lot of teams, to have two athletic tight ends in at the same time. Obviously, that's going to take one wide receiver off the board, but if you're a goofy play calling like McVay as well as Ben Johnson, they can do it. 5-yard run there by Swift. Johnson and Landman there with the tackle. Third down and 1 at the Rams 28. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. And we'll be debuting some new music at some point, maybe in the next week or two. Manangai up the middle. 1-yard run. First down, Bears. Move the chains. Bear down. I like this Kyle Manangai. And again, we know what Swift can do. He's been around the league for quite some time. But again, to be able to have the young core of Manangai, Luther Burden III, and Colston Loveland, I'm not sure if there's a better young trio than those three. Obviously it would be better if you had a better quarterback, than Caleb Williams. But with that being said, Caleb's better than Justin Fields. There's no doubt about that. Justin Fields can't throw. All he can do is run. So they did make the right decision on moving on from Fields. Caleb is better than Fields, but, at this point, not by much, but he is better. Pass incomplete to Colston Loveland. Spates there with the coverage. Second down and 10 at the Rams 27. Got about 5 minutes left here in the fourth quarter. Bears have their backs against the wall. Shotgun set going deep to Zacchaeus. Incomplete. Third down and 10 at the Rams 27. And at some point, you got to get Colston Loveland or DJ Moore the ball. Ian Luther Burden III hasn't really been a factor, and he can be a factor. You definitely got to, and again, it's not like Rome can't make a play either, but again, you have to be, kind of selective on what you're going to be able to do. But again, Ben Johnson can call the plays, but it's up to Caleb Williams to be able to find the right guys on the field, and sometimes that's a challenge. Not every number one pick is going to be, treated the same way. But I definitely like this version of Caleb more than, last year. This is definitely a better coach, quarterback, kind of chemistry, with those two guys working together, even though Caleb still has a long ways to go. Third down and 10. Caleb throwing towards the sideline. He's open. Nice catch. Yes. Nice job by Rome. There we go. The former Husky coming up big. And on top of that, roughing the passer. There we go. First and goal now at the 5. Now the Bears are knocking on the door. That's exactly what they needed. It was already amazing with that 17-yard catch. Rome normally is double covered, or, it's a throw that, the defender is right on him and there's no chance. But finally, Rome kind of ends up getting in between the zone here and has a good opportunity to go up and get it at its high point. Does. And that definitely looked like Michael Penix Jr. throwing to Rome Odunze in college for the Huskies. Beautiful. And again, if that play doesn't happen, maybe they don't get into the end zone and they only get 3. So huge play here. First and goal at the 5. And you definitely have 2 capable running backs that can get in the end zone, as well as Caleb Williams himself. Hand off to DeAndre Swift. 2-yard run, second and goal at the Rams 3. And now this is where you really need your offensive line to step up. If you want that lobster and steak dinner, after the game, and you want the, quarterback or whoever to pay for it, you need to make sure that you do your job right here. When the game is on the line, you need to be able to push for another second or 2 longer than normal, and then to see if we can get in the end zone to tie this up. 17-10 Rams, 4 minutes to go, 3 yards away from tying this game up. And they give it to Swift again, bouncing off that right tackle. 2 yards this time around. They're getting closer. Third and goal at the Rams 1. And it obviously, with Ben Johnson calling the plays, they're going to go for it. They're not going to take 3. They're going to go for both plays. And if they don't get it, then the ball will be at the 1. And then they're just going to hope the defense can find a way. But I don't see them kicking the field goal here, even though a lot of, coaches would, but again, the type of Ben Johnson coach that he is, definitely a gambler. And the first gamble, worked, where they got the touchdown with DJ Moore. The second one didn't work, but it didn't really turn into any points. So, and Swift again, 3 times in a row. I don't like that play call. What about Kyle Monangai, damn it? And then Williams and Lake with the tackle. Now it's 4th and goal at the 2. Like, if you got a guy like Kyle Monangai, why are you running it with Swift 3 times in a row? It doesn't make any sense. One guy goes low, one guy goes high. Williams and Lake with a big tackle there as Swift is jumping in the air. And again, for as educated and smart as some of these head coaches and play callers are, it's kind of the head scratcher, when they have all these other options. Like, what are you doing? And Caleb Williams going to Luther Burden III, incomplete. And another bugaboo. You could have had 3. You could have had a better play call, and you get nothing. And now the ball is at the 2. And, again, for this kind of not the greatest play calling, they don't deserve to win now. Big stop for the Rams. But, again, you're still backed up. So, again, there's 3 minutes left. There's still a chance that you can force a 3 and out and end up getting the punt at the 50, and then still have one last chance, with maybe a minute to go, to be able to tie the game up. But momentum has shifted. And, again, horrible play calling by Ben Johnson, which normally isn't the case, but again, the 4th down and 1 call in the first half and that last drive, kind of similar to Sean McVay calling 3 passes on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. Like, what are you doing? And it's one thing, like when you have a hot hand, right? And you want to keep feeding that guy, right? But is Swift really the one that you want to feed 3 times when you got a guy in Kyle Monangai who might be better than Swift? And it's one thing if you want to give Swift 1 try, maybe 2 at the most, but why not go to Monangai on that last play instead of, going with Swift? So, again, a game of inches. There's not been a whole lot of separation in these 2 teams. And, it may come down to those, kind of garbage 4 plays that might cost the Bears a chance to get their ass beat against the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game. But again, winning this game would be huge. If you're a Bear fan, even though that you're happy that you ended up beating the Packers, and you can probably live, your 2026 on a high, knowing that you beat them and, you advanced. But man, not the quarterback, head coach, offensive play calling that you want late in the game there. But again, they are a young team. They'll learn. But again, a missed opportunity for the Bears there. They could have gotten 3 at the very least, but again, they know that field goals aren't going to win this game. And again, I would have liked to seen a little bit more, than just going Swift, and then not even running the ball on 4th down and then going to Luther Burden III and not even in a good throw, so 3:03 left in the 4th quarter. Rams 17, Bears 10. Some questionable play calls by 2 gurus today. But those last 4 plays might be the end of the Bears, especially when you don't have a reliable quarterback and the other quarterback is the MVP, And again, It's not often that you see a game where Stafford has no touchdown passes and they still might win the game. But remember, there is 3:03 left. But Kyren Williams came up big with 14 carries and 2 touchdowns. But even if the Bears, end up losing the game, you have to give them some love that they actually made this a game. It definitely could have been, much worse, especially if the game was in Los Angeles, but they fed off the crowd. They fed off the snow. They just needed Ben Johnson and Caleb to be, on point the whole game, which is a very difficult task. And again, Caleb with the 2 bad picks and then some questionable play calling by Ben Johnson on that drive. Tifo Chief in the building. What's good? Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that Don't Know train. And 5 to 15 subs. Shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. And then tomorrow we'll be live for the Natty. Chief if you're available. We got the Miami Hurricanes and the Indiana Hoosiers. It'll be a great way to start off the beginning of the week. And then we'll be, sprinkling in a little bit of NBA and NHL. And then obviously as we get into February, a little bit of NASCAR. And then before you know it, we'll be back into baseball season. And again, even though YouTube did me dirty in the World Baseball Classic final, where they ended up, deactivating my account for a week for nothing I did wrong, I still may end up doing some of the World Baseball Classic. And I just have to pray that they don't do that to me again and whatnot, because I can't, be not available to work for a whole week. I need every day possible, but the team looks like they're deep enough roster-wise to win it all, but it will be a challenge. Kyren Williams with a nice 10-yard run. First down, Rams, and that gives them a little bit more of a cushion. Hand off to Williams again, bouncing off that right guard. But Kevin Byard, the third, is right there, the safety for the Bears. Loss of 2, and that's going to be 2nd down and 12 at the Rams 12. And now it kind of feels like the only way the Bears are going to get back into this game is if they get a fumble for a touchdown or a pick 6. It's asking a hell of a lot from the sports gods this late in the game, but that might be the only thing to kind of, turn the momentum. But if they do end up getting a pick 6 or a fumble for a touchdown, that still may not be enough to win, considering the Rams would still end up having a minute or so to be able to drive down the field and get a field goal to win the game, if that were to happen. And Kyren, short game, timeout Bears. And that was a good timeout there with 7 seconds left before the 2-minute warning, using the 2-minute warning as that extra timeout. 17-10 Rams. So we got Patriots versus the Broncos and no Bo Nix. And then we're going to have potentially the Seahawks and the Rams. If the Rams can hang on for the last 2:07. Big 3rd down and 10 here. Man in motion. They decide to be conservative. Handoff up the middle, 3-yard gain. 4th down and 7 at the Ram 17, and that's the 2-minute warning. I don't know if I like that play call either. I know they want to be able to run the football and, have it go to the 2-minute warning, but why not, try to get a first down to win the game? In that particular situation, it wouldn't hurt, to try to go downfield. If you don't end up getting it, you're going to punt anyways. But if you do get it and you get a first down, then you're really putting the pressure on the Bears and you essentially can win the game. So again, as great as these, 2 geniuses are in calling plays, quite a few missed opportunities, why be so conservative and just run the football? If you're going to punt, you might as well throw it one more time, see if you can get the first down, and that might have won the game for you. Obviously worst case scenario, it gets picked off for a pick 6 and something like that. But again, you end up getting the first down, you get very close to possibly winning the game. So I'm not really sure what the method to the madness was there for Sean McVay, but we got 2 minutes left, 4th down and 7 at the Ram 17. right, 4th down and 7 for the Rams. Just really confused on why they didn't go for a pass, in that 1st down in that situation. I mean, if it's incomplete, it turns into a punt anyways. But if you get the 1st down, and it's not like you were going to get it running the football there. And only a 33-yard weak punt by Ethan Evans. That's not what they wanted. And now it's going to be 1st down and 10 at the 50. It's like you're really giving the Bears a chance to, get this game in overtime. And then if it does go to overtime, it definitely favors the Bears being at home. So again, if the Bears are going to pull off this upset, we'll see how good Caleb can be here late. But again, the Rams are kind of known, for getting that big interception late in the game, especially if they know that you're going to be throwing it almost on every down the rest of the way. Let's see what happens here. Shotgun set. Caleb going deep to Luther Burden III and complete. 2nd down and 10 at the 50. And if the Bears were smart, you got to be able to sprinkle in a run at some point, But a great job there by Kobe Durant breaking up that Luther Burden III. That was a pretty good throw there by Caleb, but even a better defensive play by Durant, who's got 2 picks today. Otto in the building. What's good? Stacks. Rax with the little Cactus Jack. Bang, bang. Said Eric Metcalf, huh? Give me a sec. Shotgun set. Caleb steps up in the pocket. Nice throw. Laser. 18-yard pass to Colston Loveland. 1st down, Bears. Move the chains. Nice job there by Caleb to Colston Loveland. 1st down, Chicago. Hand off to DeAndre Swift, bouncing off that left side. And another 1st down. 12-yard gain. 1st down, Bears. Bear down. What a juke there. That went from being a gain of 4, and that nice juke got 8 more yards. Beautiful. No huddle, shotgun set. Caleb, short middle to Luther Burden III, their slippery rookie wide receiver. 6-yard gain. 2nd down and 4 at the Rams 14. Ben Johnson is starting to cook here with the Bears in this last drive. Shotgun set. Caleb, short right to Luther Burden III, incomplete. 3rd down and 4 at the Rams 14. If they get the touchdown, they kick the extra point because I think the momentum would favor them in overtime. If you go for 2 and then you don't get it, you're never going to hear the end of it from the fan base. Again, if it works and you end up winning, great, but the chances of the 2-point conversion actually working out is probably like 20%. Do you really want to, gamble the whole season on something that might have a 20% conversion rate or worse? I think you kick the extra point if they get the touchdown, and then you can win it in overtime because I think it would favor them if they were able to make this comeback, but that's a big if. Shotgun set. Williams, short middle to DJ Moore, incomplete. And now we're down to the last down, 4th and 4 at the Rams 14. And instead of just running it, up the middle or doing some, weak ass pass, you may want to consider running the football with Caleb Williams, with like some kind of RPO, and if the flip to the running back is there, great. And if not, maybe a little check down or dump down, to someone right in front of him to get 5 yards would be the key. But I don't think I would run it with Manungai or Swift right up the middle, to get 4 yards. And then obviously if you're going to throw a pass, I don't really know what you're going to get pass-wise, back shoulder fade. Caleb's not good at it. I mean, he could end up doing something similar like that DJ Moore throw, where he's throwing a laser into the middle of the field. But again, is that same kind of play going to be open? It's probably going to be double covered. So it'll be very interesting to see what they decide to call here. But if they end up calling a normal play, this game is over. It has to be, something, obviously that you can't be a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 kind of play. So I'm very interested to see what happens here. But I think Caleb with the option of running for the 1st down gives them the best shot. And then if he can flip it or throw it at the very end of the play, maybe that'll be the difference. Unless they can get a similar play to DJ Moore like they did in the first half for the touchdown. We'll find out here. Here we go. Season on the line for the Bears. Down by 7. 27 seconds left. Shotgun set. We'll see if the Rams bring the blitz. Man in motion. Rams bring pressure. Caleb running backwards. They're fucked. Season over. It's over. Throwing deep. Oh my God, he caught it. Touchdown, Cole Kmet. But did he step out of bounds? Holy hell. How did he catch that? Unbelievable. Whoa. And again, you know, if you're the Rams, how do you let a guy slip open that late after Caleb's running 20 yards in the wrong direction? Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the extra point is up and good. And, you know, let's be honest, 99 times out of 100, you know, when the play gets broken up by the blitz and you're running backwards 10 to 20 yards, how often does that actually turn into a first down, let alone a touchdown? That's insane. I mean, that's something that's going to happen like once or twice a season, and the Bears got lucky enough that it happened in a fucking playoff game. Unbelievable. Santos, extra point is up and good, and the Bears legitimately have a shot to win this game in overtime. Whoa. Crazy luck, you know, and again, you know, most of the time when you're running in the, you know, wrong direction, but again, you know, the Rams bit, and again, you had some of these guys running after the quarterback, but those safeties and corners need to be disciplined, and you let Cole Kmet get behind you. Unbelievable. Unbelievable throw, unbelievable catch, and how do you have a guy like Cole Kmet get behind two defenders? Unexcusable if you're the Rams. Unreal. Off 1 foot, throwing, you know, in the wrong direction, across his body, 40 yards downfield, getting chased by Jared Verse and company, and then for that to actually turn into a game-tying touchdown. Unbelievable. Wow. I mean, as soon as he started running back, oh, it's game over. I mean, because that's usually what happens. But I guess once in a, you know, blue moon, you're going to end up getting a miraculous play, you know, and as good as, you know, Durant has been, what were you doing there? Wow. And crazy that the Rams might end up losing this game in overtime based off that mental error there. Wow. And again, you know, Cole Kmet, like I mentioned, you know, when you get Loveland and Kmet on the field at the same time, sometimes magic happens, and apparently it does. Kickoff here. And good special teams there by the Bears, and they have all the momentum. You know, it's not like, you know, the Bears you would assume would keep up with Seattle in Seattle, but if they were able to win this game against the Rams, I mean, that would be great for their fan base, even though they would get absolutely destroyed by Seattle at home. But I mean, you know, at least getting to the Final Four is a big thing, right? Especially if you're a first-year coach in a team that normally is at dead bottom in the NFC North for years and years and years. And that's going to be the end of regulation. We got overtime, 17 all. We're going to overtime, baby. Oh, man. I'm going to really miss, you know, football. College obviously ends tomorrow. We'll be doing Miami and Indiana. Hopefully Miami can keep up with Indiana, but don't hold your breath. And then obviously after this game ends, we got 3 games left. We got the NFC Championship game, the AFC Championship game, and the Super Bowl, and that's it. But obviously once we get to that point, we know baseball is right around the corner, and I know for a lot of us, we're very excited about that. But man, crazy. 15-minute quarters. Each team will have the opportunity to possess the ball unless the team kicking off to start scores a safety or a defensive touchdown on the receiving team's initial possession. Team leading after each has had an opportunity to possess the ball wins. And if teams remain tied after each has had a possession, next score wins the game. Game cannot end in a tie, and each team gets 3 timeouts like you would when you started the game. Yeah, I mean, based on whoever, you know, wins, it feels like it's going to be Seahawks-Patriots Super Bowl rematch. That's what it feels like. I just don't see any scenario in my head of Denver winning with Jarrett Stidham. Even if Drake May, throws 3 picks and fumbles 3 times, they're not going to lose. They're going to still be able to win that game, even if they were to play bad. I just don't see any scenario with a guy that hasn't played that's going to come in there and beat New England. Not going to happen. And then obviously, the Rams and Bears are going at each other toe to toe. But again, the way that Seattle has played coming into the playoffs, to me, that was the best team in football, going into the playoffs before they even started. And based on what we've seen, in the playoffs, I still feel that way. I still feel that, they're very well balanced. But the thing is New England is very well balanced as well. So it's not going to be like a cakewalk for the Seahawks in the Super Bowl if they play New England. They're going to have to earn it, and they potentially could lose, even though Seattle looks like the stronger team. But, based on how New England has been playing lately, they have a shot. And again, we're a few games away from getting to the Super Bowl, but that's what it kind of feels like. Minnie in the building, what's good? Yeah, I thought for sure it's over. He starts running backwards, last play of the game, 10 to 20 yards in the wrong direction, and then it ends up being a 40-yard touchdown pass. But you really got to put that on the DBs on the Rams. There's just no way in hell that anyone should have been able to get past him, at that point. It's not like the corners or safeties were going to have a shot at a sack 40 yards away from the quarterback, and that's your responsibility. Don't let anyone get behind you. And not only did one Ram player get that player to go past him, you had 2 Rams, defenders, get passed by Cole Kmet, and then he was able to come up with the big play. So unbelievable. But again, that's what makes sports, amazing, right? Sometimes, history repeats itself, but sometimes you can expect the unexpected, even if it might be a thing that only happens once or twice a year. Yeah, Caleb against the Packers. That was insane. Unbelievable. Running backwards 20 yards in the wrong direction, and then wide open was Cole Kmet. There wasn't even a defender 5 yards to him. Ridiculous. Mini in the building. Cairo Santos, 64-yard kick. Ronnie Rivers, 26-yard return. And that's going to be first down and 10 at the Rams 27. All right. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty here. 17-17 overtime game. And this is what we want as sports fans. A close competitive matchup that could go either way. Hand off to Kyron Williams, bouncing off that left end for an 8-yard gain. Second down and 2 at the Rams 35. You know how it goes. People pop up out of nowhere when things are starting to go good, or apparently when things are on the line. End off to Kyron Williams, bouncing off that left tackle, 1-yard gain. Third down and 1 at the Rams 36. $14 minutes left here in overtime. Rams 17, Bears 17. One of the most miraculous plays in the fourth quarter by Caleb Williams. Obviously we know that, for every great thing that he does, there's usually 1 or 2 boneheaded decisions that he makes. And he's got 2 picks today, but that touchdown, man, that definitely was one of the most unexpected things that I've seen this whole year. Crazy. Third down and 1 here at the Rams 36. Stafford under center. Bears showing blitz. Puka in motion. Flip. And good defense there by the Bears, but they missed the tackle. But the second individuals and thirds do not. And Blake Corum, loss of 1. Kevin Byard III scooping up the tackle there after a missed tackle by a few Bears initially. And now it's 4th down and 2 at the Rams 35. I mean, you could have ran that same play 100 times and it only converts to a touchdown maybe once or twice. I mean, that's how lucky that play was. I mean, like I said, 99 times out of 100, you run 20 yards in the wrong direction, and then you go from a 20-yard pass to a 40-yard pass, and then it ends up, being caught by a wide open tight end in the back of the end zone. Like, not something that happens often. Like once or twice a season type of thing, and they were just lucky enough that it happened in the NFC Divisional playoffs at the end of the game where they needed it the most. Unreal. Ethan Evans with a 49-yard punt, and fair caught there by Devin Duvernay. Crazy play. One of the craziest plays I've seen all year, by any team or any situation. But again, that's what makes, the NFL fantastic. Some things are predictable, but again, sometimes you got to expect the unexpected. Caleb Williams, short left to Cole Kmet, obviously feeling that connection. 12-yard pass. First down, Bears. Bear down. Twelve minutes left in overtime, 17-17 all. Bears showing a lot of heart, but again, it also helps that they're at home, feeding off the crowd and, having the weather be, as snowy as it is, definitely played into their favor here tonight. And Swift bouncing it to the outside and losing 4. Jarrett Verse, one of the best defensive players on the planet with the tackle. 2nd down and 14 at the Chicago 24. Shotgun set. Caleb, short right to DJ Moore. Nice 9-yard gain. Hinchins there with the tackle for the Rams. 3rd down and 4 at the Chicago 34. Rams played worse than expected. Bears played better than expected. And with that being said, I don't think anyone anticipated a 17-17 game, in overtime. But, I'm happy that we ended up doing this game tonight, and it ended up being a classic. I like being able to see teams get over 20, but, we've had a little bit of magic, with all things considered. Shotgun set, 3rd down and 4. Caleb using his legs, and we knew he would have to do that at some point or another. And he's a little faster than he looks. First down, Bears. Move the chains. Bear down. The Iceman says, put the team on the shoulders. I got this. It's like once he turns on the jets, he's a little bit quicker than people think. He runs like a wide receiver tight end, so. Gets popped late there by Nate Landman, but not after he gets the big first down for the Bears. Bear down. Caleb Williams, short left to Kyle Monangai. 6-yard pass, 2nd down and 4 at the Chicago 44. When's that fumble or that interception going to happen? Next score wins the game. And I kind of felt like if the Bears were to do the unthinkable and get it to overtime, that it would favor them in this overtime period being at home. But again, anything can happen. Play calling is going to be very key and critical here late. And we've seen both coaches kind of fumble the bag, so to speak, in the 4th quarter with their play calling. Toss to Swift. And good tackling angle there by Nate Landman. Beautiful. Loss of 2. 3rd down and 6 at the Chicago 42. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 100 likes, 100 on that dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's get it, baby. 17-17 all in overtime with a chance to be able to go to the NFC Championship game against the Seattle Seahawks. Shotgun set, Williams, short right to Cole Kmet, and gains about 5. 4th down and 1 at the Chicago 47. There's no doubt about it. You go for it. I mean, you were able to come up with that insane play to be able to get it to overtime. It's not like you're punting the ball here. We know both of these coaches are very overly aggressive when they need to be. And at this point, at 4th down and 1, maybe just keeping the ball in Caleb's hands would be the best decision. That's what I would do if I was offensive coordinator or head coach. And there it is. Caleb with the keeper. Smart call. 1st down, Bears. You hand it off to Swift or Monangai, it probably is going to be a loss of 1 to 3, right? So to be able to keep the ball in Caleb's hands, that's the perfect call. He's got enough size and length to be able to get 1 to 3 yards, and a great job there. Great play call there by Ben Johnson. Great execution by Caleb. And again, play calling getting a little bit better here in overtime for the Bears. I mean, once you start watching a team enough, you can kind of, figure out tendencies and what's going to work and what may not work. Hand off to Monangai off that right side, 2-yard gain. Tyler Davis, the DN for the Rams with the tackle. 2nd down and 8 at the Rams 48. But the way that the flow of this game is going, it feels like it's going to be a Santos field goal for the win. Bears win 2017. That's what it kind of feels like, unless they're able to, Caleb to do some miraculous touchdown pass like he did right before overtime in the 4th quarter. But obviously next score wins, and that includes a field goal. Now the Rams have to pray that they can get a fumble or a pick, or their season might be over. Or a sack. 2nd down and 8. Shotgun set. Caleb's got plenty of time. He's going deep. And intercepted. Idiot. Wow. Now they're going to lose. What a dummy. After coming up with that big miraculous play, that's what you're going to do? Intended for DJ Moore. And when they needed the interception, the fumble, or the sack, right? The sports god said, well, here it is. Wow. And so for every great thing that Caleb does, there's 2 or 3 bad things that he does. And 3rd interception of the night for Caleb Williams, unexcusable in that situation in overtime. You're knocking on the door to be able to get the field goal to win, and that's what you throw? Jesus Christ. There goes the Cairo Santos, field goal for the win. But again, curl. Did you see that diving interception? I mean, most, defenders don't make that play. That was a pure effort play for Cam Curl. Someone get him some steak and lobster. Unbelievable. And now the momentum has shifted to the Rams. And as long as the play calling is somewhat good, this should be a Ram win, you would think. But we'll find out. I can't believe Caleb threw that pass. I mean, they were only another 1st down away from getting a comfortable field goal from Cairo Santos. But again, that's what happens when you have an unreliable quarterback. Shotgun set, Stafford short right to Colby Parkinson. Big 15-yard gain. 1st down, Ramley. Move the chains. And now, if you're the Bears, you need the same thing to happen. You need a fumble. You need a sack. You need an interception. But it's one thing when Caleb's throwing the ball and getting a pick, but it's completely different when we're talking about Matthew Stafford, the NFL MVP this year. Wow. No huddle, shotgun set, short left to Devontae Adams. Now they're being able to sling it and fling it to different players now. Beautiful throw by Stafford, and even better catch by the Hall of Famer in the future, Devontae Adams. Move the chains. Wow. Unbelievable. Look at the throw by Stafford, and look at the catch by Devontae Adams. My God. Way to bring the electricity there. Previous play is under review. See the toe drag swag by Devontae. It's a catch. Great job there by Devontae Adams. And the patience and being able to know where he's at on the field to drag the toe, bobble the ball, and to continue to drag the toe to make sure to get that second foot down. Beautiful. The call is upheld from the booth, and it stands, which it should. And we know Mevis is a pretty good kicker, so now they're getting a little bit closer. And if you're the Bears, you need a fucking miracle. You need a fumble, you need a sack, you need a pick. You need a fumble, but it looks like maybe the Bears lost their opportunity. I mean, they were lucky enough for that Caleb touchdown pass, to go 20 yards in the wrong direction and to be able to have that convert to tie the game up to Cole Kmet is one thing. But, again, you have to have good quarterback play in this league to be able to win. And we saw CJ Stroud with 4 picks earlier today. That ain't going to get the job done. Caleb with 3 today. And again, you expect more, from your leader, but again, he's young and inexperienced. And, for every miraculous play he makes, there's a couple bonehead plays that he makes as well. Hand off to Blake Corum, and that's going to be a 4-yard run. 2nd down and 6 at the Chicago 43. Yeah. And again, sometimes Caleb has that, I'm the man, I'm Superman, I'm the Iceman, I'm the guy, and again, if you put too much pressure on yourself, thinking that you're going to be the guy that's going to win the game for your team, sometimes that ends up backfiring. Pass batted down there by Jarrett. 3rd down and 6 at the Chicago 43. We know Caleb is young and he has been better with Ben Johnson, but just too inconsistent of a player to be considered a top 10 quarterback. And maybe one day he will be, but to me right now, somewhere in that 14, 15, 16 range, at times makes top 10 plays, but also makes bottom 10 plays pretty often. And timeout Rams. 3rd down and 6 at the Chicago 43. Always fun when you can get a few overtime games in the playoffs. It's not like anything that you really expect to happen, but again, overall, the playoffs have been pretty fun this year. A few blowouts and whatnot, but, the first 4 games were electric, and we're continuing to see that electricity shine here. Shotgun set, Stafford, short right to Puka Nacua. You knew he was going to come up big at some point. 16-yard pass, 1st down, Rams. And now we're moments away from them kicking a field goal or getting in the end zone. I think the Bears kind of feel defeated, and you can kind of tell with the body language of their defenders. They had a chance to win the game, and Caleb blew it. And again, he was the hero to get him to overtime, but he also is the zero that ended up losing it for him in overtime. Three-yard run by Blake Corum off that right guard. Dexter with the tackle. 2nd down and 7 at the Chicago 24. And as good as this young Bear team is, Rams Seahawks is going to bring more eyeballs to the sport than Bear Seahawks. Rams Seahawks, Seahawks are the better team and they, should win, but the Rams could win, right? They've definitely challenged them this year, them splitting the series in the regular season. But if it ends up being Bears and the Seahawks, there's no way, that the Bears, you would think, would be able to compete with Seattle for 4 quarters. They might be able to hang around for a quarter or 2, but based on how Seattle has been playing, they definitely look like the best team that's left. And then New England, maybe number 2. Could end up getting a rematch to that Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Seahawks. Timeout, Rams. All right, we're getting closer here from the Rams winning this game. We'll see what Sean McVay is cooking. the Rams end up winning, kind of the, power rankings or the pecking order would have to be Seahawks 1, and they've looked like the best team for quite a while. Patriots 2, Rams 3, and then obviously the Broncos 4 because they have no Bo Nix. But, if Bo didn't get hurt, they would have a chance against New England. There's no doubt about that, but we'll never know because of the injury. It stinks. Worst timing ever for an ankle injury in overtime, which no one even saw it. Shotgun set, Stafford going deep right to Colby Parkinson, incomplete. 3rd down and 7 at the Chicago 24. But also, too, you have to consider the Bears' special teams. Yeah, if they kick the field goal, Mevis should be able to make this chip shot. But the Bears do have talent on the special teams that they could get a piece and, block it or tip it. It's not likely to happen, but it could happen. And Stafford goes deep to Terrence Ferguson, incomplete. And now the field goal unit should come out. And we assume as long as the snap and the hold are good, Mevis will win this game for the Rams, and they will advance to the NFC Championship game against the Hawks. But again, we will find out here momentarily. If the snap is, not accurate or the hold is a little off, laces in, laces out, it does make a difference. But you would assume in this situation, it will be 99% they're going to make this. Kick is up, and it is good. And that is the game. Harrison Mevis with the game winner. And again, the Bears had a chance, but again, Caleb fucked it up at the end. But again, great effort by the Bears at home. And again, the Rams, maybe scored a little bit less than expected. Bears played better than expected, and it took them all the way to overtime. But nice job by Mevis getting it through the crossbars. And now we're going to have an electric NFC Championship game against the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. And then obviously congratulations to the New England Patriots for beating the Texans. And we'll have the Patriots versus the Broncos. And again, it would be better if Bo Nix didn't get hurt, but injuries are a motherfucker, huh? Well, I love you guys, and I appreciate you guys very much. I'm going to go take a long walk with the Paisley Pup. Hope you guys enjoyed the broadcast. Final score, Rams 20, Bears 17 in overtime. And we'll be live tomorrow for the Natty. Come through. Number 10, Miami. Number 1, Indiana. I can't wait to be able to do this game, the last game of the college football season. Love you guys, and I appreciate you guys very much. And I got one question for you. Who talks sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics, and I'm out. Okay.